3 weeks after my husband's funeral, my son stood in the doorway of the house I had lived in for nearly 30 years. He threw 2 suitcases onto the front steps and said coldly, "You should go, Mom." My voice trembled. "This is my home." He looked at me like I was a stranger and replied, "Was your home?" That night I sat at a bus station for the homeless, clutching my husband's ashes, until a black limousine stopped in front of me. My husband's old lawyer stepped out, stared at me for a few seconds, then said something that sent ice down my spine. This story starts with loss, but it doesn't end there. Before we begin, drop a quick comment for me. Is it morning, afternoon, or late night where you are? I read every single comment, and your presence here truly matters. Just a quick note. This story includes some fictionalized details added to bring the lesson to life. What matters most is the message behind it. The August heat pressed against my face as I raised my hand to knock on the oak door of the house Warren and I bought 28 years ago, and realized I was knocking on my own door like a stranger. At 62, with silver-streaked hair and 35 years of marriage behind me, I stood before my own mansion door for what I didn't yet know would be the last time. The polished brass knocker felt heavy in my hand. Inside, I could hear voices, my son's low murmur, a woman's laugh. 3 weeks since Warren's funeral, the door opened. My son Theron, 38 years old, in his crisp white shirt, with hair neatly combed, opened the door and looked at me with eyes colder than I'd seen in any stranger. "Mom," he said. Not mother, just Mom, like a label on a file he was closing. "Theron, I came to collect some things. My clothes, the photo albums, Warren's papers." He didn't move from the doorway. Behind him I could see the marble foyer Warren and I had chosen together in 1996. "You don't need to come in," Theron said. "Everything you need has been arranged. 2 suitcases here." He gestured to his left. 2 black suitcases sat on the front steps like abandoned luggage. "Your father died less than a month ago," I said slowly. "You're standing in front of me and saying, Dad's will was very clear." Theron's hand tightened on the doorframe. "The house, the accounts, the company. Everything goes to me. You're provided for. There's a small trust. But this house belongs to the estate now. Warren would never—" He did. October 2024 revision, everything's legal. A voice drifted from inside my daughter-in-law of 7 years, Celeste, 35, with an interior designer's precision and a conspirator's timing. "Theron, the safe in the basement has to be dealt with before she remembers." The words stopped me cold. Which safe? Theron's eyes flickered with something that looked like panic. "I'll handle it," he called back. Then to me, "You should go, Mom. The suitcases have clothes, some jewelry, personal items. This is my home. Was your home." He started closing the door. "I'm sorry. This is how it has to be." The oak door closed with a soft final click. I stood there for minutes that felt like hours. Warren existed now only as ashes in the small wooden urn I clutched to my chest, 65 years of life, and 35 years as my husband reduced to this. The urn was warm from being pressed against my body during the walk from the funeral home. The August evening pressed down with humidity and disbelief. I picked up the suitcases. They were heavier than they looked. I had no car. Warren's Tesla was apparently part of the estate now. I had no phone, it had gone dead this morning. I had roughly $47 in my purse, 2 suitcases, and Warren's ashes. The sun was setting as I walked down Commonwealth Avenue past Victorian houses and manicured lawns. I whispered to the urn, "Warren, can you hear me? You told me not to worry. You said everything was arranged." The wooden box didn't answer, but in my mind I heard Celeste's voice again. "The safe in the basement has to be dealt with before she remembers." Before I remember what? My arms ached from pulling the suitcases. My feet began to blister. I passed the Boston Public Library, its stone lions guarding nothing that could help me. What had I done wrong during these 35 years to deserve this ending? The question followed me through darker streets, past tourists and students and people who had places to go. I kept walking. By the time I reached Copley Square, bus terminal night had fallen completely. The terminal's fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting everything in sickly yellow-green. I found a metal bench near the departure boards and sat down heavily, placing Warren's urn on my lap. "Did you love me?" I whispered to the urn. "If so, where are you now when I need you most?" Around me, the terminal filled with desperate late-night travelers, a woman holding a crying baby, a young man with a duffel bag, an elderly couple speaking Spanish in quiet tones, all of us waiting for buses to somewhere else. I am lonely in a way I've never been in 35 years. The thought arrived sharp as glass. Warren had been my companion, my partner, my home. Without him, I was just a 62-year-old woman sitting at a bus station at midnight with 2 suitcases and no destination. The wooden urn felt warm in my hands, or perhaps just warmer than my frozen heart. I was staring at nothing when the headlights appeared. A black limousine pulled up outside the terminal, not a taxi, not a bus. Its engine was quiet, expensive, deliberate. It stopped directly in front of the glass doors, directly in my line of sight. Who would come to a bus station at midnight in a limousine? The rear window rolled down slowly. A face appeared in the darkened glass, a face I recognized even through my shock and exhaustion. Warren's oldest friend, the lawyer who had been at our wedding 35 years ago. Clifford Davenport, 67 years old, with silver hair and the grave expression of someone who's been searching for something he dreaded to find. He looked directly at me through 40 feet of terminal fluorescence and August darkness. I knew with the certainty that sometimes arrives before understanding that whatever came next would change everything I thought I knew about Warren, about Theron, about the life I'd just lost. Clifford opened the car door and stepped out into the night. Clifford Davenport crossed the terminal floor with the purposeful stride of someone who'd been searching and had finally found what he was looking for. At 67, with silver hair swept back and a navy suit without a wrinkle, even at midnight, he looked like Warren's closest friend for 40 years, an inheritance lawyer with the kind of calm that comes from seeing every possible human betrayal. "Phyllis," he said softly, "may I—" He gestured to the bench beside me. I nodded, unable to speak. The urn felt suddenly heavier in my lap. Clifford sat down, maintaining a respectful distance. "I've been following the situation since the funeral. I knew Theron changed the locks today. I guessed you'd come here." "Here?" The word came out hoarse. "To a bus station. This is where you used to wait for Warren whenever he came home late from business trips. Don't you remember before you moved to the Back Bay house when you lived in that Brookline apartment? You'd take the bus here to meet him at the South Station terminal." The memory arrived like a wave 28 years ago, young and newly married, waiting with coffee and paper cups for Warren to step off the bus from New York. How did Clifford know that? "Warren told me," Clifford said, as if reading my mind. "He said if anything ever happened to him and you were lost, you'd go to a bus station. It's where you felt closest to him." Tears burned behind my eyes. Clifford Theron said there's a new will. He said everything goes to him. I know what he said. Clifford's voice hardened. "And I know it's more complicated than that. But we can't talk here. My car is outside. There's an apartment safe warm. We need to talk about what Warren left for you." I looked at the limousine through the terminal glass, then back at Clifford's grave face. What did Warren leave? "The truth," Clifford said, "and evidence. But first you need to get off this bench and trust me. Trust." The word felt foreign after 3 weeks of free fall, but Clifford had been at our wedding. He'd been the godfather at Theron's christening. If Warren had trusted him with 40 years of legal work, perhaps I could trust him with one midnight car ride. I stood up, clutching the urn. Clifford picked up my suitcases without asking. The limousine's interior smelled of leather and subtle cologne. The seats were warm. As we pulled away from the terminal, I watched the fluorescent lights recede through the tinted windows, watched my rock bottom disappear behind us as we drove through empty Boston streets. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Somewhere Theron doesn't know about," Clifford said. "A corporate apartment I keep for out-of-town clients. 28th floor. You'll be safe there tonight." The drive took 20 minutes through the sleeping city. The apartment building rose like a glass tower above the financial district. Clifford used a key card to access a private elevator that opened directly into the apartment. The space was modern and clean, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston Harbor, a glass table, cream-colored furniture that looked like it had never been sat on. On the table, someone had left a tea service with steam still rising from the pot. "You prepared this," I said. "I hoped I'd find you," Clifford admitted. "Sit down, Phyllis. Have some tea. Then we need to talk." I sat. The chair was soft, the tea was chamomile, and for the first time in 3 weeks I felt the possibility of warmth returning to my body. My hands trembled, holding the teacup not from cold, but from the terrifying hope that Warren had left me a path forward. Clifford sat across from me and opened a laptop I hadn't noticed on the table. His fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. 6 weeks before Warren died, Clifford said slowly, he sent me an encrypted email, just one sentence. "Only show Phyllis this video when it becomes necessary." My heart stopped. Video. He recorded it in his home office. The timestamp is June 10th, 2024. Clifford's eyes met mine. "Phyllis, after you watch this, things will never be the same. Are you ready?" I set down the teacup. "Turn it on." Clifford rotated the laptop to face me and pressed play. Warren's face filled the screen. My husband, my Warren, but thinner than I remembered, with eyes red from crying or exhaustion, or both. He was sitting in his home office, the one with the mahogany desk and the window overlooking the garden. The date stamp in the corner read June 10th, 2024, 11:47 p.m., 6 weeks before he died. Clifford Warren's voice said from the speakers, and I had to grip the table edge to keep from sobbing. "If you're showing this to Phyllis, it means I'm gone. It means it's worse than I thought." Warren leaned closer to the camera. "Don't trust Theron. He knows about the safe in the basement, the one behind the wine rack. He's been searching for it. If I'm gone, he'll get there first, unless you move fast." The safe. The basement safe Celeste had mentioned? "Find Phyllis first," Warren continued. His voice cracked. "Before Theron does. Tell her the combination is something only she'll understand. Not a date, not a name. Something from before. Something we never told anyone." He rubbed his eyes, and I could see his hands shaking. "The evidence is all there. Financial records, recordings, documents. Everything she needs to understand what Theron's been doing. What I discovered too late." Warren looked directly into the camera, directly at me across time and death. "Tell her I'm sorry I didn't tell her sooner. I thought I could handle it myself. I thought I could fix this before—" His voice broke. "Tell her I loved her. Tell her to be smart, be careful, and be strong. She'll need all three." The video ended. Warren's face froze on the screen for a moment before it went black. I sat in silence, my mind racing through 35 years of memories. Something only I would understand. Something from before. Something we never told anyone. "Warren, you knew. You knew, and you prepared everything. Why didn't you tell me when you were still alive?" Clifford's voice broke through my thoughts. "He said you would know the combination, but Phyllis—" He leaned forward, his face grave. "We have maybe 48 hours before Theron finds that safe and destroys everything inside it. Can you remember what Warren meant? What secret did you two share that no one else knows?" I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat at Clifford's glass table as darkness gave way to dawn, my mind racing through 35 years of memories, searching for the code Warren meant. Dawn crept through the 28th floor windows, painting Boston Harbor in pink and gold. Clifford returned with coffee and a stack of manila folders. "You should drink that," he said. "What I'm about to show you requires caffeine." I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. Is this about Theron's debt? It's about everything Warren discovered. Clifford opened the first folder. "And why your son needed him dead." The words hung in the air like smoke. Dead. Not passed away. Dead with agency behind it. Clifford spread papers across the table. Bank statements, wire transfers, accounts marked with yellow highlighter. "Your son owes $3.2 million to people who don't negotiate payment plans." I stared at the numbers. 3,200,000. How is that even possible? Underground poker games in Revere. Sports betting through offshore accounts. casino markers in Atlantic City and Vegas. Clifford traced a line down one statement. Started small 2 years ago, 50,000, 100,000. But the losses compounded. Each time he lost, he borrowed more to win it back. From whom? Organized crime. The Calabrese family out of East Boston. My investigator identified them yesterday. Clifford's finger moved to another section. These people don't send collection letters. They send enforcers. When the debt gets this large, they suggest creative repayment methods. Like inheriting $60 million from a dead father, I whispered. Clifford nodded. I sipped the coffee. It tasted like ash. But we gave Theron everything. His education, his position, his salary. His salary was $400,000 a year. After taxes, about $250,000. Clifford's voice was gentle. Nowhere near enough to service this debt. The interest alone was running $30,000 a month. $30,000 every month for 2 years. I thought of Ellis, 7 years old, drawing pictures of boats being raised by a man capable of accumulating this kind of secret catastrophic debt. A man who would look at his own father and see an obstacle between himself and salvation. There's more, Clifford said, opening the second folder. This one was thicker, filled with corporate records bearing the Prescott Energy logo. Clifford spread them out with the care of someone arranging evidence for a jury. He was stealing from his own father. The question came out strangled. While Warren was still alive, 14 different shell companies registered in Delaware and Nevada. Started February 2023. Clifford traced a path through the documents. Small withdrawals at first 50,000, 100,000, carefully structured to avoid triggering audits. By last fall, 200,000 at a time. I scanned the highlighted figures. How much total? $8.7 million. Clifford's voice was flat. Stolen from Prescott Energy over 18 months while Warren was CEO and Theron was CFO. Your son had signatory authority because Warren trusted him. He used that trust to drain company funds through fake consulting fees and equipment purchases that never happened. $8.7 million stolen, and he still owed $3.2 million. Where did it all go? Gambling losses mostly. Some went to pay down debt, but Theron kept playing, kept losing. Classic addiction spiral. Clifford pulled out another sheet. But look at this timeline. He placed a summary sheet on top. I saw dates highlighted in red: February 2023 when theft began, October 2023 when withdrawals increased, and June 2024 circled in bright red. June this year, Clifford said. $2.1 million withdrawn in a single month. That's when Warren recorded the video warning you. The timeline clicked into place with terrible clarity. June 10th, the video's timestamp. Warren had discovered the embezzlement and recorded a message knowing something bad was coming. 10 days later, Warren had started feeling sick. 6 weeks after that, he was dead. Your husband wasn't just in danger, Clifford said softly. He was in the way. Theron needed the stolen money to disappear into estate chaos and a new will giving him control before Warren could disinherit him or call the police. Warren, you saw this? You saw all of it. Why didn't you tell me when you still had time? But I knew the answer. Warren had always protected me from hard truths, always tried to shield me from pain. He'd probably planned to handle it quietly to give Theron a chance to confess. Warren had believed in second chances, in redemption, in family. That belief had killed him. The will, I said. Theron mentioned October 2024, but Warren died in July. Exactly. Clifford's expression darkened. Which means that will is either forged or coerced. Warren's actual will from March 2022 left everything to you. I have a copy in my office safe. But if Theron filed a fraudulent later version with probate court, 3 sharp knocks at the apartment door made us both freeze. Clifford's hand moved toward his phone, protective, wary. No one knows about this apartment, he said quietly, standing. The knocking came again. 3 hard raps that echoed through the space. Clifford moved to the door and looked through the peephole. His body went rigid. "Who is it?" I whispered. He didn't answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice was tight. "It's Sheldon Greaves. Warren's CFO. I stood up. What would he want? I don't know. Clifford reached for the deadbolt, but he looks terrified. He opened the door. Sheldon Greaves was about 55 with thinning gray hair and a rumpled suit that looked slept in. He was Warren's chief financial officer for 20 years, the man who'd helped build Prescott Energy from a regional company into a national operation. Now he clutched an old leather briefcase to his chest like a life preserver, his face gray with exhaustion and something else. Fear. Clifford. Sheldon said, his voice hoarse, "Thank God, I didn't know where else to go. Theron fired me yesterday, cleared out my office, cut my access, everything." He lifted the briefcase. "But I have copies. I have everything." Sheldon stumbled into the apartment like a man who'd been running for miles. He clutched the briefcase to his chest, his eyes darting between Clifford and me as if checking we were real. "Sit down," Clifford said, guiding him to the table. "When did Theron fire you?" "Yesterday, 3 o'clock. Sheldon's voice shook. 20 years I worked beside Warren. 20 years building that company from regional to national. Theron handed me a printed termination letter without looking me in the eye once. He set the briefcase on the glass table with trembling hands and clicked it open. Inside, manila folders were organized with the precision of a man who'd spent decades managing corporate finances. "Warren told me 4 months ago," Sheldon said, pulling out the first folder. "He said if anything happened to him, if he died suddenly, I should find you, not Theron. You." He looked at me directly. "He said you'd know what to do with this." Clifford leaned forward. "What is it?" "Everything." Sheldon spread papers across the table. "Every document, every signature, every crime. I've been scanning files for 3 months, copying records, after hours building the complete picture of what Theron's been doing." The first document he placed before me was a pharmaceutical order form. The header read, "Med Supply Direct, dated June 12, 2024. The ordered medication digoxin, 0.25 milligrams, tablets quantity 90. Shipping address Prescott Residence, Back Bay, ordered by Theron Prescott." The date was 2 days after Warren had recorded his video warning. "Digoxin," Sheldon said quietly. For someone with Warren's cardiac history, this dosage taken regularly over 3 months would cause gradual heart failure, would look exactly like natural death from cardiovascular disease. The room tilted slightly. I gripped the edge of the table. "My son killed my husband," I whispered. "With medicine, over 3 months. Premeditated." Clifford said, his lawyer's mind already assembling the case. "Ordered the drug the same week Warren discovered the embezzlement. This wasn't impulse Phyllis. This was calculated murder." Sheldon pulled out another document. "And he paid for help covering it up." This one was a bank transfer receipt from Theron Prescott Consulting, LLC, to Dr. Preston Whitfield Medical Services, amount $85,000, date July 10th, 2024, 2 weeks before Warren died. Dr. Preston Whitfield, Warren's family doctor for 15 years. The man who'd signed the death certificate suggesting we skip the autopsy said it was standard for cardiovascular patients that an autopsy would be invasive and unnecessary given Warren's medical history. $85,000 to look the other way. Whitfield signed the certificate within 2 hours of Warren's death, Sheldon said. No examination beyond checking for a pulse, no questions about medications or symptoms, just a signature declaring cardiac arrest due to natural causes and a gentle suggestion that the family avoid the trauma of an autopsy. The evidence stacked higher with each document, like watching someone build my son's prison cell 1 paper brick at a time. Clifford was already pulling out his phone. "I'm calling my investigator. We need to know everywhere Whitfield's been, everyone he's talked to, every dollar he's spent since Warren died." Sheldon wasn't finished. He pulled out a third folder, this one thicker. "There's more. About Celeste." He spread surveillance photographs across the table, time-stamped images of my daughter-in-law entering the Four Seasons Hotel. Each photo showed her with the same man-dark hair, expensive suit, practiced smile. Bennett Lockwood. Clifford said, studying the photos. High-end real estate agent, specializes in luxury properties and international buyers. Sheldon nodded. They met 11 times over 4 months. Always at the Four Seasons, always in the afternoon when Theron thought she was at the spa or shopping. An affair, so I said. More than that. Sheldon pulled out bank statements. Celeste opened an account at Credit Suisse Zurich 3 months ago, under her maiden name Celeste Monroe. She's been liquidating jewelry, transferring funds from joint accounts with Theron into this Swiss account. As of last week, she had $400,000 hidden there. Clifford studied the documents with narrowed eyes. She's preparing to run. The mansion's being transferred to a shell company registered in Delaware. Sheldon continued. Papers filed last month. Ownership will technically belong to Monroe Holdings, LLC, which is Celeste. Once the transfer completes, she can sell it without Theron's knowledge or permission. I stared at the photographs of Celeste and Bennett. She's abandoning her own son. Ellis is 7 years old. 8. Clifford corrected gently. He turned 8 last month. 8 years old. The same age Theron had been when he'd fallen off his bicycle, and Warren had carried him to the emergency room, holding his hand through 6 stitches. The same age he'd learned to swim, to ride without training wheels, to read chapter books. Now Theron was a murderer, and his wife was planning to disappear to Switzerland, with her ex-boyfriend leaving their son behind like unwanted furniture. Celeste dated Bennett for 5 years before she met Theron, Sheldon added. They broke up when Bennett's real estate business went bankrupt in 2015. She married Theron 6 months later. Looks like she's been waiting for Bennett to rebuild his finances before resuming the relationship. She married for money, I said flatly, and now she's stealing it and running. Clifford tapped one of the Swiss bank statements. Celeste is afraid. She knows what Theron did. Maybe she helped plan it. Maybe she just looked the other way. Either way, she wants distance before everything collapses. Warren, you knew about all of this. You knew Theron ordered the drugs. Did you know Celeste was planning her escape, too? My phone vibrated on the table. The screen lit up with an incoming video call from a number I recognized, the mansion's landline, the phone in Ellis's bedroom that Warren had installed, so his grandson could call him any time. Ellis, my 8-year-old grandson, calling from the house I'd been expelled from just 24 hours ago. Clifford's hand moved toward the phone, his expression cautious. "Answer it," he said quietly. "But be very careful what you say. If Theron or Celeste are listening..." I picked up the phone and pressed accept. Ellis's face filled the screen, small, frightened, glancing over his shoulder at his closed bedroom door. He was wearing his astronaut pajamas, the ones Warren had bought him for his birthday. "Grandma," he whispered. "Are you okay? Dad said you went away and weren't coming back." My heart seized at the sight of him, Ellis, at 8 years old, with Warren's brown eyes and his mother's delicate features, innocent and frightened, whispering into his tablet from a bedroom in the house that had become a crime scene. "I'm here, sweetheart," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the chaos of evidence spread across the table behind me. "I'm at a friend's house. I'm perfectly fine. Dad said you went away and weren't coming back." His voice cracked slightly. "He said you were sick and needed space, but that's not true, is it?" Clifford moved closer, listening intently while staying out of camera range. "Your dad and I had a disagreement," I said carefully. "Sometimes adults need time apart to think, but I'm okay and I'm thinking about you every minute. Are you okay?" Ellis glanced over his shoulder at his bedroom door, which stood slightly ajar. When he looked back at the camera, his eyes were glossy with unshed tears. "I'm scared, Grandma. Mom and Dad had a huge fight last night. I heard it all. They were yelling so loud." My throat tightened. "What did you hear, baby?" "I couldn't sleep. Their bedroom door was open a little bit and their voices carried down the hall to my room." He bit his lip. "I shouldn't have listened, but they were so loud." "It's okay," I said gently. "Sometimes we hear things we don't mean to. What were they fighting about?" Ellis's eyes darted to the door again. When he spoke, his voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Dad was really angry. He said something about Grandpa's medicine. I didn't understand it." He paused, trying to remember. He said, He said something like, "Dad's medicine's been dealt with. Don't worry about that anymore. Worry about the safe." The room went silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Clifford's hand gripped the back of my chair. I forced my face to remain calm, warm, grandmotherly. That does sound confusing, doesn't it? I'm sure your dad was just upset about paperwork. Adults say strange things when they're stressed. But why would he be worried about Grandpa's medicine? Ellis asked. Grandpa doesn't need medicine anymore. The innocence of that statement, the simple logic of an 8-year-old who couldn't conceive that his father had poisoned his grandfather, nearly broke me. You're right, sweetheart. Your dad was probably just going through Grandpa's old things and getting emotional. Sometimes grief makes us say things that don't make much sense. I smiled at the camera. Are your parents home right now? Dad's downstairs in his office. Mom went to dinner with a friend. Ellis shifted the tablet, and I could see his bedroom the astronaut posters Warren had helped him hang the bookshelf, filled with chapter books they'd read together. Grandma, when can I see you, I was teaching my grandson to spy on his own parents, turning an 8-year-old into evidence against his father. Soon, baby. Very soon. I made a decision that felt like swallowing glass. Ellis, I want to play a special game with you, just between us, a secret mission. His eyes brightened slightly. A secret? Yes. Every night before bed, I want you to leave your tablet on your desk with the camera facing your room. Turn on the voice recording app. You know how to do that, right? The one Grandpa showed you for making your space videos. Ellis nodded eagerly. The one that records even when the screen is off. Exactly that one. Start it recording every night when you go to bed and stop it in the morning. Then send Grandma the files through your email. Can you do that without telling anyone? Not even Mom and Dad. Especially not Mom and Dad. This is our secret mission, just between you and Grandma. I hated myself with every word. If they ask what you're doing, just say you're recording night sounds for a science project about your house. Okay. His face lit up with the conspiratorial excitement children feel when trusted with grown-up secrets. I can start tonight? Perfect. And Ellis, if you hear anything that scares you, anything at all, I want you to go to your room, lock your door, and call me immediately. Can you promise me that? The excitement dimmed slightly. Am I in danger? No, baby. But Grandma worries, and I feel better knowing you can reach me any time. I forced another smile. I love you so much. You know that, right? I love you too, Grandma. He yawned, rubbing his eyes. I should go to bed. Dad gets mad when I'm up late on school nights. Good night, sweetheart. Sweet dreams. And remember, our secret mission starts tonight. I won't forget. He waved at the camera. Bye, Grandma. The screen went dark. I set the phone down with shaking hands. The apartment felt suddenly cold despite the August heat pressing against the windows. What kind of grandmother uses her grandchild as a weapon? The kind whose husband was murdered by her son. Clifford broke the silence. Phyllis, that wasn't circumstantial. That was Theron's own words. Dad's medicine's been dealt with. He was talking about poisoning Warren. Ellis heard him admit it. He's 8 years old, I whispered. I just turned my 8-year-old grandson into a spy. You just gave him a way to protect himself, Clifford corrected gently. If Theron says anything else incriminating, if he threatens Celeste, if anything dangerous happens in that house, we'll have it recorded. Ellis won't be alone in there. Sheldon, who'd been silent throughout the call, finally spoke. The boy's testimony alone would be compelling in court. A child has no reason to lie, no motive to fabricate. When a judge hears that an 8-year-old heard his father say, Dad's medicine's been dealt with 2 weeks after the grandfather died mysteriously. It's not enough, I interrupted. It's hearsay. It's the memory of a frightened child. We need more. Then let him record more. Clifford said quietly. Let the tablet capture whatever else Theron says when he thinks no one's listening. Let Ellis be our eyes and ears inside that house until we can get to the basement safe ourselves. I looked at the phone screen now dark and silent. Ellis was probably brushing his teeth right now, excited about his secret mission, completely unaware that he'd just become the most important witness in a murder investigation. "Your grandson just gave us the smoking gun," Clifford said. "The question is, how many more bullets are still loaded?" The smoking gun changed everything and nothing. We had Ellis's testimony, Sheldon's financial records, the drug order with Theron's signature. But we still couldn't reach the safe. 2 days passed in Clifford's apartment, reviewing evidence, Ellis's tablet recordings, arriving each morning with nothing incriminating, yet just the sounds of him sleeping and occasional house creaks. Bank statements became memorized numbers. The doctor's file lay open before me this Saturday morning, and I realized we'd been circling the question none of us wanted to answer. How would I get back inside that house? "Look at the timeline again," Clifford said, pointing to the payment record. $85,000, transferred July 10th, exactly 2 weeks before Warren died. I stared at the bank statement. The transaction was labeled medical consulting fees, with Dr. Preston Whitfield listed as payee. Perfectly legitimate if you didn't know it was blood money. 2 weeks to prepare, I said, to make sure he'd sign whatever certificate Theron needed without asking questions. Death certificate signed the same day Warren collapsed, Clifford continued. July 24th, within 2 hours of the ambulance arriving at the hospital. No autopsy suggested family grief, considered standard procedure for known cardiovascular patients. Sheldon, who'd been reviewing expense reports at the other end of the table, suddenly straightened. "There's something else about Whitfield." We both turned to look at him. I was going through Theron's entertainment expenses, the ones he charged to company accounts. Sheldon spread new papers across the table. Brookline Country Club. Theron's been paying guest fees for Dr. Whitfield every Saturday morning for 3 years. The information took a moment to land. Guest fees. "They play golf together," Sheldon said. "Same foursome, every Saturday at 10 a.m. I found the expense reports going back to 2021. Theron claimed it as client entertainment, but Whitfield isn't a client, he's Warren's doctor." "Warren, your own doctor. The man who treated your heart condition for 15 years. Did you know he played golf with our son every Saturday?" "They're friends," I said slowly. "Not just doctor and patient, friends." "Which means this wasn't hiring a random corrupt doctor," Clifford said, his voice hard. "This was asking a trusted friend to help commit murder. Whitfield knew exactly what he was signing. He knew Warren. He'd been treating him for years. He knew that cardiac arrest at 65 with proper medication management was unlikely. I thought of all the times Warren had spoken fondly of Dr. Whitfield, the Christmas cards we'd exchanged, the time Whitfield had made a house call when Warren had pneumonia 3 years ago, a family friend, a man we'd trusted. "How much did Whitfield know?" I asked. "About the digoxin, about the plan." "Enough to take $85,000 and sign a certificate without an autopsy," Clifford said. Whether he knew the specific method or just understood that Warren's death would be convenient for Theron, it doesn't matter. He was complicit. How many people had Warren trusted who stood by and watched him die? Sheldon closed his laptop. "The safe. We need to talk about the safe." The room went quiet. This was the question we'd been avoiding for 2 days. "Warren hid everything there," Clifford said. "The insurance policy naming you sole beneficiary, the original will from March 2022, financial records proving Theron's embezzlement, everything Theron needs to destroy to make his fraudulent October will stand up in probate court." And he said I'd know the code. I added, "Something only I would understand." "Have you remembered it?" Sheldon asked gently. I'd been searching my memory for 2 days. Birth dates, anniversaries, addresses, nothing felt right. Warren had said something from before, something we'd never told anyone. But 35 years was a lot of secrets to sort through. "Not yet," I admitted. "We're running out of time," Clifford said. "Celeste mentioned that safe to Theron the night he expelled you. That was 3 days ago. If he hasn't found it yet, he will soon." "So what do you propose?" I asked, though I already knew the answer I didn't want to hear. "You have to go back." Clifford's voice was quiet but firm. "You're the only one who can access that safe. Even if we broke into the mansion, we couldn't open it without you." "He threw me out," I said, "changed the locks, made it clear I wasn't welcome. Then we need to change his mind." "How?" The word came out bitter. "Walk up to the door and ask nicely, remind him I'm his mother." "No." Clifford leaned forward. "We make him want you there. We give him a reason to let you back in, one that serves his interests." "He wants me gone," I said. "Dead would probably be better. How do I convince him to—" "Money." Sheldon interrupted. "Everything Theron does is about money. He needs it desperately. If you could offer him something valuable—" "Now I have nothing," I said. "He took everything. I'm sitting here in borrowed clothes drinking coffee I didn't buy." "But he doesn't know that," Clifford said, slowly understanding dawning in his eyes. "As far as Theron knows, you might have accounts he doesn't control, hidden savings, your own inheritance money from before you married Warren." Sheldon set down his coffee cup, the sound sharp in the quiet room. "There's one way," he said, looking at me with something like pity. "You go back as the defeated mother, the broken widow who has nowhere else to go. You beg Theron to take you back." The words hung in the air like poison. "You offer him money," Sheldon continued. "Say you have a secret account savings Warren didn't know about. You'll give it to him to help with the estate transition if he lets you stay a few days, just long enough to say goodbye to Ellis properly, to pack your things. And while I'm there, you find the safe." Clifford finished. "Access it. Photograph everything. Then you leave before Theron realizes what you've done. Return to that house. Stand before my son and beg. Act defeated when I was anything but." "He'll see through it," I said. "Maybe," Clifford admitted. "But he's desperate enough and greedy enough that he might take the risk, especially if we make the offer large enough to matter." "No," I said. The word came out sharp final. "I won't beg him. I won't stand in front of my husband's murderer and ask for permission to exist." Sheldon opened his mouth to respond, but Clifford raised a hand. "I thought you'd say that." He stood and walked to his study, returning moments later with a manila envelope. From it, he pulled a single sheet of paper, a cashier's check, crisp and official-looking, made out to Theron Prescott for $500,000. "What is this?" I asked. Clifford set it on the table. "Your alternative to begging. We use his greed against him." I picked up the check. It looked real bank logo, watermark signature line. "Where did you get this?" "I had it printed yesterday," Clifford said calmly. "From a template. It's a perfect replica of a Bank of America cashier's check. Completely fake, of course, but Theron won't know that until he tries to deposit it." "That's fraud," Sheldon said, his voice tight. "It's bait," Clifford corrected. "The check will never clear. We just need it to get Phyllis through the door and keep her there long enough to access the safe. By the time Theron discovers it's worthless, she'll be gone with the evidence." I stared at the number, 500,000, and the story, "You received a settlement from one of Warren's former business partners, a buyout agreement that paid out after his death. You want to share it with Theron to make peace to help with estate expenses." Clifford's voice was matter-of-fact, as if he suggested insurance fraud every day. "You play the repentant mother, not defeated generous, offering an olive branch wrapped in money." "He'll be suspicious," I said. "Of course he will. But greed is louder than suspicion." Clifford met my eyes. "You said it yourself, everything Theron does is about money. Show him $500,000 and you'll watch his brain recalculate every decision." I looked at Sheldon, who was staring at the check with visible discomfort. "This could backfire catastrophically," he said. "If Theron realizes—" "Then I'll leave," I interrupted. "Fast, but Clifford's right. Theron is drowning. $3 million in debt, $8 million stolen, and spent the loan sharks closing in. This check is a life raft. He'll grab it." We spent the next hour rehearsing. My script apologetic but not groveling, warm but not desperate. I practiced the story until it sounded natural, the business partner, the settlement, my desire to help my son through this difficult transition. Clifford played Theron, asking suspicious questions, testing my responses. By the time we finished, I could deliver the lies without hesitation. The next morning, I stood at the mansion gate at 10 a.m., exactly my finger on the intercom button. The fake check sat in my purse beside my phone, which Clifford had set to record audio. I pressed the button. "Yes," Theron's voice came through the speaker, cold and clipped. "Theron, it's me, your mother. I need to talk to you about something important." Silence. Then, "We've said everything that needs to be said. Please, I have something that belongs to you. Something financial. I can't discuss it over an intercom." Another pause. I could almost hear him calculating. The gate buzzed and swung open. Theron met me at the door with his arms crossed, wearing a white button-down that made him look like a stranger. "Make it quick," he said. I reached into my purse and pulled out the check. "I received this last week, settlement from one of your father's business partners, a buyout agreement that triggered on his death. I thought about keeping it, but—" I held it out to him. "You're his son. This should help with the estate transition." Theron's eyes dropped to the check. I watched his face change as he read the amount, suspicion battling greed, caution wrestling with need. He took the check from my hand. His fingers trembled slightly as he examined it, the same long fingers that used to build Lego castles with Ellis when my grandson was 4 years old, patient and careful and kind. Now those fingers gripped $500,000 in fraud, and I noticed his wedding ring catching the morning light. Except it wasn't his wedding ring. It was Warren's signet ring, the thick gold band with the Prescott family crest that Warren had worn for 40 years. The ring Warren had been wearing when he died. Theron had taken it off his father's dead hand. "Why would you give this to me?" Theron asked, his voice suspicious. "Because you're all I have left," I said, delivering Clifford's script with aching sincerity. "I can't lose my son, too. I know you're angry with me. I know you think I'm difficult. But Theron, you're my child. This money might help you, and helping you is all I want." His eyes narrowed. "And you want what in return?" "Nothing. Maybe a cup of tea, a chance to see Ellis for a few minutes, to feel like I'm still part of this family." Greed won. I watched it win. "Come inside," Theron said, pocketing the check. "For tea, but it's temporary, Mother. Don't mistake this for forgiveness." "I understand," I whispered. He turned and walked into the house. I followed him across the threshold, the same threshold I'd crossed 10,000 times in 28 years, but now it felt like crossing a border into enemy territory. The marble floor was the same. The chandelier Warren and I had chosen in 1996 still hung in the foyer crystal, catching the light exactly as it always had. But everything felt different, transformed by knowledge and betrayal. I built this house with Warren's dreams. Theron inherited the stone, but not the soul. "Wait here," Theron said. "I'll have someone bring tea to the living room." He disappeared down the hall toward the kitchen. The moment he was out of sight, I heard voices from upstairs, Celeste's voice, tense and urgent. "Did you move the safe combination?" She was saying her words, carrying down the open stairwell. "I need to get in there before Friday. We talked about this." I froze. Friday. 3 days away. Whatever was in that safe had a deadline, and I'd just been let inside with 72 hours to find it. Friday. 72 hours. I had to find that safe before Celeste accessed whatever was inside. But first, Theron had other plans for me. "Mother," he said, returning from the kitchen with a folded apron and a set of keys. "Since you're staying temporarily, we thought you'd be comfortable down here." He gestured toward the basement stairs. "The maid's room. Wouldn't want to presume on the guest rooms." The basement. The servants' quarters I'd designed myself 28 years ago when we'd built this house compact room with attached bath, simple bed, small window near the ceiling. I'd chosen every detail thinking about comfort for the young women who might live there while working for our family. I'd never imagined I'd be the one sleeping in it. "Of course," I said quietly. "That's very thoughtful." Celeste appeared in the hallway, her expression carefully neutral. "Breakfast is at 7 sharp," she said. "The kitchen needs tidying after. I've left a list of tasks on the counter down there." I descended the basement stairs carrying the small bag Clifford had packed for me. The maid's room looked exactly as I remembered it, cream walls, single bed with white linens, a desk by the window. Warren and I had debated the tile color for 3 hours. He'd wanted practical gray. I'd insisted on warm beige because even staff deserved beauty. I unpacked slowly, listening to footsteps above. Theron's office door closing. Celeste's heels clicking toward the kitchen. Ellis's small feet running down the second-floor hallway. 3 days until Friday. I had to search this house systematically, room by room, without arousing suspicion. Wednesday afternoon, Ellis found me. I was folding laundry in the basement, actual laundry part of the degrading charade, when I heard small footsteps on the stairs. Ellis appeared in the doorway wearing a striped shirt and the kind of worried expression no 8-year-old should master so well. "Grandma," he whispered, glancing over his shoulder, "can you tell me about Grandpa?" I set down the towel I'd been folding. "Of course, sweetheart, come sit with me." He climbed onto the bed, and I noticed immediately Warren's watch on his small wrist. The old Timex with the cracked crystal, the one Warren had worn for 40 years, despite my offers to buy him something nicer. "Broken things still tell time," he'd always said. "Your grandfather," I began, "used to collect rocks from every place he traveled. He said each one had a story, where it came from, what forces had shaped it, how long it had existed before someone noticed it was special." Ellis's eyes lit up. "I found his rock collection in the attic. There were hundreds." "Hundreds," I agreed. "He started collecting when he was younger than you. Dad said he was going to throw them away, said they were just rocks taking up space." Ellis's voice dropped, but I hid my favorites. The blue one from Maine and the striped one from the Grand Canyon. Is that stealing? No, baby. That's preserving. I touched the watch on his wrist. "Where did you get this?" "Grandpa's nightstand. The day after he went to heaven. I took it before Dad could." He looked up at me with Warren's brown eyes. "Dad says I'm not allowed to talk about Grandpa at dinner. He says it makes Mom sad, but I don't think that's really why. Smart child, too smart. Your grandfather would be very proud of you," I said, "for keeping his rocks safe, for asking questions, for remembering him." Ellis stayed for an hour, and I told him every story I could remember. Warren building a treehouse that collapsed. Warren learning to sail. Warren proposing to me with a rock he'd found that looked like a heart. When Ellis finally left, I felt Warren's presence more strongly than I had since his death. That night, footsteps woke me at 2 a.m. Heavy steps in the basement hallway just outside my door. I lay perfectly still, listening. The storage room door opened, the one at the end of the hall where we'd kept old furniture and holiday decorations. Theron's voice muttering to himself, "Where would the old bastard have put it? He always had a backup. Always had a fucking backup plan." Drawers opening, boxes being moved, the sound of someone searching frantically. After 20 minutes, his footsteps retreated back upstairs. Thursday morning at breakfast, Theron barely acknowledged me as I served coffee. But when Celeste left the room, he spoke. "Mother, did Dad ever mention where he kept his personal files, the ones he didn't trust to the office?" I kept my voice casual. Warren was meticulous, everything in its proper place. His study safe. Theron pressed. "Did you know the combination?" "No," I lied smoothly. "Your father handled all the important documents himself. Said I worried about money too much." Theron's jaw tightened. Of course he did. Friday came and went with no explosion, which meant Celeste hadn't found what she was looking for yet. The deadline was something else, something still approaching. Saturday morning, I was washing dishes when Celeste appeared in the kitchen doorway dressed for shopping. "Ellis needs school supplies before Monday," she announced to Theron, who was reading the newspaper at the table. "I'm taking him to Natick Collection at 2. Theron looked up. "I have a tea time at Brookline at 2:30. We'll both be out until 5. My pulse quickened. 3 hours. The mansion empty for 3 hours. "I could deep clean the study while you're gone," I offered quietly. That room always collected dust. Theron barely glanced at me. "Fine. Don't touch anything on the desk." I spent the next 2 hours moving slowly through my assigned tasks, mopping, dusting, performing the role of obedient mother. 3 days of swallowing rage like bitter medicine. 3 days watching Theron play lord of a stolen manor. but patience is its own kind of power, and Saturday afternoon will be mine. At 1:30, Celeste loaded Ellis into her Audi. At 2:05, Theron's BMW disappeared down the drive. I watched from the kitchen window as both cars turned onto the main road. The mansion settled into silence, the particular quiet of a large house, with no one in it, the kind of silence that amplifies every small sound. I had 3 hours to find Warren's safe, crack the code only I was supposed to know, and photograph whatever evidence he'd left before my son returned from his golf game with the doctor who'd helped murder my husband. I climbed the stairs toward Warren's study, my heart beating against my ribs like something trying to escape. Warren's study looked exactly as he'd left it. Mahogany desk leather chair, bookshelves lined with engineering manuals and first editions. But I wasn't looking for the obvious safe behind the Monet print. Warren's video had mentioned the basement, the wine cellar. I descended the stairs quickly, my footsteps echoing in the empty house. The wine cellar stretched along the basement's north wall, Warren's pride climate-controlled and organized by region and vintage. My hands moved across the bottles, searching for the 7th Bordeaux from the left on the top shelf. 7th. Warren had said it meant something to us. I counted carefully. 1, 2, 3, 7. A 1988 Chateau Margaux. The label slightly faded with age. I pulled it gently from the rack. The bottle didn't budge. I tried again, harder this time, and felt something catch a mechanical resistance. Then a soft click. The entire wine rack section swung inward on hidden hinges, revealing a steel door set into the wall behind it. A modern digital safe completely invisible when the wine wall was closed. "You paranoid, brilliant man," I whispered. The safe had a numeric keypad, 8 digits required. I stood before it, my mind racing through possibilities. Our wedding anniversary, June 12th, 1989. I tried it. Red light. Error. Warren's birthday, November 3rd, 1959. Red light. Theron's birthday. Ellis's birthday. The year we bought this house. Red light. Red light. Red light. Warren had said something only I would understand. Something from before. Something we'd never told anyone. I closed my eyes, thinking back through 35 years. Before marriage, before Theron, before this house. What had Warren and I shared that no one else knew? And then I remembered. September 14th, 1988. The Starbucks on Newberry Street. Warren had seen me reading there for 3 weeks straight before he'd finally gathered the courage to talk to me. He'd ordered my chai latte before I could speak, had noticed what I drank every day. Then he'd spilled his own coffee across the table in nervousness while asking my name. September 14th, 1988. The day my life began its true arc. Warren celebrated that date privately every year, always remembering it was our real beginning. September 14th, 1988. I entered the numbers slowly, my finger trembling over each digit. The lock mechanism whirred. Green light. The safe door opened with a satisfying click. "You remembered?" I whispered to Warren's memory. Of course you remembered. Inside the safe was meticulously organized Warren's engineer's mind, even in preparing evidence against his own son. I pulled out the first document with shaking hands. A life insurance policy from Mass Mutual. Beneficiary Phyllis Ann Prescott. Coverage amount $18 million. $18 million. I stared at the number. Then at the policy date, March 15th, 2024. 4 months before Warren died. The previous policy had been for $4.5 million. Warren had quadrupled his life insurance the same month Theron's theft had accelerated. He'd known. He'd known he was in danger, and he'd protected me. Behind the policy, a manila folder thick with financial records, bank statements showing the shell companies Sheldon had identified, wire transfers, corporate account printouts with amounts highlighted in yellow Warren's own documentation of Theron's embezzlement, an external hard drive in a protective case labeled in Warren's precise handwriting, Theron accounts 2022 to 2024, and at the back a sealed envelope, cream-colored stationery, Warren's favorite. The inscription read, "If I don't make it to 70, for Phyllis." He'd been 65 when he died. He'd known he wouldn't make it to 70. I pulled out my phone and started photographing everything. The insurance policy, first every page, every clause. The financial records, each highlighted transaction. The hard drive serial numbers, visible label, clear. My hands were steadier now. This was evidence, this was ammunition. This was Warren reaching forward from death to protect me and Ellis from the son who'd killed him. I was photographing the final bank statement when I heard it, a car engine in the driveway above. Through the small basement window, I saw Celeste's Audi pulling in. My phone showed 3:15 p.m. They weren't supposed to return until 5. Celeste's voice carried through the window, frustrated and sharp. Ellis, stop crying. We'll go back for the blue backpack tomorrow. Ellis's small voice, tearful. But I need it for Monday. They'd forgotten something. They'd come back early. The car doors slammed. Footsteps on the front porch, the door opening above my head. I stared at the evidence scattered across the safe shelf. The wine wall gaped open behind me. The only way out was up the basement stairs that creaked distinctly with every step, stairs that led directly to the kitchen, where Celeste was about to enter. I grabbed the manila folder and hard drive, stuffing them back into the safe. The insurance policy, the envelope. My hands fumbled as I tried to organize everything the way Warren had left it. Above me, Celeste's heels clicked across the kitchen floor. Ellis, go to your room, she said. I need to grab wine for tonight. Your father's bringing clients for dinner. A number. Her footsteps moved toward the basement door. I heard the doorknob turn, the door opening. The light switch flipped on, flooding the stairs with yellow light. I had maybe 30 seconds. The evidence was still scattered. The wine wall was still open. The safe door stood ajar with Warren's secrets visible to anyone who walked past. Celeste's heels hit the first stair. The wood creaked under her weight, the same creak I'd heard every day for 28 years, the creak that had always meant someone was descending, coming closer. I looked at the wine bottles at the open safe at the narrow storage alcove to my left, filled with empty boxes. Hide there and risk being found. Close the safe and risk not having time to swing the wine wall shut. Run up the stairs and confront her admitting I'd been searching. Celeste's heels hit the 3rd stair, 4th stair, 5th. I made my choice. I grabbed 2 bottles of 2015 Bordeaux from the rack beside the open safe and stepped toward the stairs just as Celeste's shadow stretched across the cellar floor. Mrs. Monroe. I called up, keeping my voice steady. I was just selecting wine for dinner. Ellis mentioned you might want the lamb paired with something special. Her heels stopped. 3rd step from the bottom. The help doesn't select wine in this house, Miss Carter. Of course, I apologize. I held up the bottles as I climbed. Ellis asked me to fetch these specific vintages. He said you'd requested them last week. Celeste's eyes narrowed as I reached the top step, but she took the bottles, examining the labels. Behind me, the safe gaped open, 20 feet of shadows, hopefully concealing it. The 2015 Pichon Longueville. Yes, though I don't recall asking Ellis to delegate this task. He's been studying your wine preferences, I said, trying to anticipate your needs. Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe pleasure. How thoughtful. She turned toward the stairs. Close up the cellar properly, and Miss Carter's staff doesn't wander the wine collection unsupervised. Understood, ma'am. I waited until her footsteps faded completely before racing back down. My hands shook as I photographed the remaining documents, bank statements showing $8.7 million in transfers, emails between Theron and offshore account managers the envelope addressed in Warren's handwriting. I pocketed the hard drive, sealed the safe, and triggered the wine rack mechanism. The wall swung closed with a whisper. Upstairs, I found Ellis in the library headphones on, working through algebra problems. He glanced up as I entered, pulling one earbud out. Your mom came home early, I said quietly. For wine. His face went pale. Did she? I told her you'd asked me to get specific bottles, covered for both of us. Relief washed over his features. Thank you. I should have warned you, she sometimes changes her schedule. We're okay, I assured him, but we need to be more careful. That evening crawled by. Celeste watched me through dinner service with laser focus, her gaze tracking every movement. Theron arrived late, smelling of cigar smoke and expensive scotch, barely acknowledging my presence. I served the lamb, poured wine-cleared plates, all while the hard drive burned in my pocket and Warren's envelope pressed against my chest beneath my uniform. At 11:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number, you found the safe, smart girl. But did you check the insurance policy fine print? Clause 7B voids everything if investigated before probate closes Friday. Move too fast, you lose it all. A friend. I stared at the message, ice flooding my veins. Someone knew. Someone had been watching or had cameras in the wine cellar, or a second text followed, lawyer up, you've got 60 hours. I forwarded both messages to my attorney Diana Rothstein at age 53, with silver-streaked hair and a reputation for destroying corporate fraud cases, my sister Rebecca's Harvard Law classmate who'd agreed to take my case pro bono after reading the initial evidence. She responded within 10 minutes. Emergency meeting tomorrow 9 a.m. Don't touch anything else in that house. But I had one more person to see. Clifford Davenport opened his cottage door at 6:30 a.m., surprise crossing his weathered face when he saw me standing there with the hard drive. Miss Prescott. I need your help, I said, and I need the truth about what Warren planned. We sat in his small kitchen, sunrise, painting the windows gold. I showed him the hard drive, the photographs on my phone, the anonymous texts. Clifford's expression shifted from shock to grim satisfaction. Warren knew, he said finally. 3 months before he died, he asked me to witness a document, a letter of intent directing you to these materials if anything happened to him. He said you were the only person he trusted to see it through. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because he made me promise to wait until you found the safe yourself. Said if someone led you there, Theron's lawyers would claim planted evidence. But if you discovered it following Warren's own clues... He spread his hands. Unassailable. The anonymous texts could be anyone. Warren's real attorney, maybe. Someone else who knew what he'd hidden, or someone trying to scare you off the trail. Clifford leaned forward. But that deadline's real. Probate closes Friday at 5 p.m. After that, Clause 7B activates and the insurance company won't investigate fraud claims. You've got to move fast. I'm meeting my lawyer at 9, I said. But first, I found Ellis in the garden at 7:15, his breath fogging in the cold morning air. He sat on the stone bench where I'd first shown him his grandfather's video, his tablet balanced on his knees. I have to go, I told him, just for today, but I'll be back. He looked up and I saw Warren's eyes staring out from his 8-year-old face, that same sharp intelligence, that same quiet strength. You found something in the wine cellar, didn't you? Something important. Yes, my grandfather left it for you, to help you prove what they did. I knelt beside him. How did you know? Because he told me. Ellis's voice dropped to barely a whisper. The week before he died, he said if anything happened to him, I should help you find the truth, that you'd know what to do with it. He pressed his tablet into my hands. I recorded everything. Every conversation I overheard, every night they argued the phone calls about the medicine. It's all time-stamped and backed up to 3 different clouds. Grandpa taught me how. I pulled him into a fierce hug, this brave boy who'd been carrying Warren's final mission for 5 months. When I released him, his eyes were wet but determined. Finish it, he whispered, for Grandpa. I walked out the service entrance at 7:45 a.m., Ellis's tablet and Warren's hard drive in my bag, the insurance policy photographs on my phone, and 58 hours until the Friday deadline. My phone buzzed one more time. Insurance Clause 7, B benefits void if fraud investigation initiated pre-probate, but investigation post-probate reopens beneficiary rights. You have until Friday 5 p.m. to file criminal complaint. After that, it's too late. Choose wisely. The man sitting across from me at the Cambridge Cafe looked like he hadn't slept in 4 months, and the USB drive between us would prove my husband was murdered. I'd been halfway to Diana Rothstein's office when the text came at 7:52 a.m. I'm the one who sent the warnings. Flower Bakery, Cambridge Street, 30 minutes. Come alone. I have the lab results. Clifford insisted on coming. He sat 2 tables away, newspaper open, watching. The stranger's hands shook around his coffee cup. "My name is Garrett Finch. I'm a toxicology lab technician at Massachusetts General Hospital. 34 years old, been running tests for 11 years. 4 months ago, I analyzed a medication sample showing lethal digoxin levels. Results were deleted from our system same day. 6 hours later, $120,000 appeared in an offshore account I didn't know I had. The cafe noise faded to white noise. I know lethal dosing when I see it," Garrett continued. "Your husband's sample showed 4.2 nanograms per milliliter, triple the fatal threshold. I documented everything, backed it up to a personal drive. Then I saw you on the news being called crazy, and I couldn't live with that anymore." "Why now?" I asked. "Warren died in July. It's been 5 months. Because they're burying you the same way they buried the evidence. And because I have a 7-year-old daughter, I want her to grow up with a father who did the right thing." He slid the USB drive across the table. "The original lab analysis, dated April 18, 2024, 3 months before your husband died. Complete chain of custody toxicology report requisition order. April. 3 months before Warren's death. Someone had been testing his medication long before the poisoning succeeded." Clifford moved to our table. Garrett glanced at him nervously. "He's Warren's estate manager," I said. "Trustworthy." Clifford opened his laptop, inserted the drive. Files appeared. He clicked the lab report. Warren's name in the patient field. Digoxin concentration 4.2 nanograms per milliliter. Reference range 0.8 to 2.0 nanograms per milliliter. Result critical, potentially lethal. "Who ordered the test?" Clifford asked. "That's the part that didn't make sense," Garrett said. "Look at the requisition signature." Clifford clicked to the next page. The requisition form appeared standard Mass General lab order. Celeste Monroe. Not Theron, not Dr. Whitfield, Celeste. "She brought the medication sample personally," Garrett said. "April 18th paid cash for expedited analysis. Told me it was for a family member concerned about prescription levels. I ran the test same day, called the number she provided with results. She thanked me, said the family would handle it. 2 days later, my boss told me to delete the files. 2 days after that, the offshore payment appeared. I stared at Celeste's signature and everything rearranged itself. She hadn't been Theron's accomplice. She'd been confirming what he was doing, gathering proof, turning murder into currency. Not to save Warren, to control Theron. She tested the medication 3 months before he died, I said. She knew and did nothing except collect evidence. Clifford's face went pale. She's not the mastermind. She's the puppet master controlling the mastermind. We relocated to the safe apartment in Back Bay. I called Diana Rothstein on the way. She was already coordinating with the FBI Boston field office building the civil case to run parallel with any criminal investigation. Don't meet with anyone else without telling me first, she said. I'm filing the insurance claim documentation today. Sheldon Greaves arrived within the hour, read through Garrett's files with prosecutorial intensity. Celeste independently confirmed the poisoning, Sheldon said, pacing, but instead of stopping it, she leveraged it. Classic blackmail. She lets Theron murder Warren, gathers proof, then uses it to control the estate distribution. Theron thinks he's getting his inheritance. She knows she's controlling Theron. Better than a divorce settlement, Clifford added. Why fight for half the estate when you can puppet master the son who inherits everything? 3 months she watched it happen, I said. Garrett sat on the couch, head in hands. I should have gone to police immediately. You're here now, I said. That matters. Sheldon studied the lab report. This is admissible. Chain of custody is clean dates documented. Your testimony corroborates it. Combined with the insurance policy, Ellis's recordings, the financial records, we have a prosecutable case. Do we approach Celeste first? Clifford asked. If she has evidence convicting Theron, maybe we leverage her self-interest. How do you negotiate with a woman who watched your husband die slowly over 3 months because his murder served her ambitions better than his survival? How do you fight a son willing to kill his father and a mistress willing to weaponize that killing when both spent 5 months building legal fortifications while you grieved? Clifford's phone erupted. He glanced at the screen, answered. Clifford Davenport. His expression shifted from curiosity to alarm. When was it filed? Sheldon and I stopped talking. An emergency petition. Clifford's voice rose. On what grounds? He listened, his face darkening. Monday morning. I understand, thank you. He ended the call and looked at me, fury and worry mixing. Suffolk Superior Court Clerk's office. Theron filed an emergency petition this morning to freeze all Warren's estate accounts. He's claiming you're mentally incompetent and dissipating assets through frivolous investigations. Hearing scheduled Monday morning, 9 a.m. Sheldon grabbed the phone. Let me see the filing. Minutes later, he had the petition on his laptop. He read aloud, voice tight. Petitioner asserts that Phyllis Prescott exhibits paranoid delusions regarding family members, has harassed medical professionals without cause, and is attempting to dissipate estate assets through baseless fraud investigations. Petitioner requests immediate asset freeze pending competency evaluation. If the judge grants this Monday, Sheldon continued, you lose access to all estate funds. Every account, every asset Warren left you frozen, including the resources you need to prove this case. Garrett looked stricken. He's cutting off your access before you can use our evidence. Exactly, Sheldon confirmed. And proving you're sane becomes infinitely harder than proving Theron's a murderer when you're fighting from court-declared incompetence. 72 hours. I had 72 hours to build a defense, proving I wasn't crazy while simultaneously proving my son murdered his father and his mistress helped cover it up. 72 hours before Theron legally stole everything while calling me insane. I stood on the courthouse steps in the only black suit I owned, watching my son arrive in his father's Mercedes, about to call me insane in front of a judge. Clifford touched my elbow. Remember, they have burden of proof. You just need to appear rational. Rational? I repeated. While my son testifies, I've lost my mind. You've survived worse than this. Theron stepped out of the Mercedes wearing Warren's Rolex, Warren's Italian suit, Warren's practice smile for courthouse photographers. He brought 2 lawyers with him, expensive suits, leather briefcases, the kind of legal armor money buys. He didn't look at me. Not once. Inside, Middlesex County Courthouse smelled like floor polish and old wood. Our footsteps echoed through marble hallways lined with portraits of dead judges. Courtroom 4B was smaller than I'd expected, packed with observers, estate lawyers, financial reporters, a few curious law students. No jury for an emergency petition. Just Judge Catherine Brennan, at age 58, presiding over Middlesex County Superior Court cases. For the past decade, her silver hair pulled back, reading glasses perched on her nose. This is an emergency petition for asset preservation, Judge Brennan announced at 9 a.m. sharp. Mr. Prescott, your counsel may proceed. Marcus Aldridge stood Theron's lead attorney, a 52-year-old estate litigation specialist from one of those white-shoe Boston firms with names like door plates on Beacon Hill mansions. His voice carried the particular confidence of someone who'd won cases like this before. Your Honor, we're here because Mrs. Phyllis Prescott has exhibited classic signs of grief-induced paranoia following her husband's death 5 months ago. She has accused hospital staff of hired private investigators to pursue elaborate conspiracy theories and withdrawn $47,000 from estate accounts for frivolous inquiries. We seek asset preservation to prevent further dissipation while Mrs. Prescott receives appropriate psychiatric evaluation. Every word was true. Every word sounded insane without context. Clifford leaned close, whispered, "Stay calm. We get our turn." Theron took the stand at 9:20. He raised his right hand, swore to tell the truth, sat down, and calmly dismantled his mother's credibility. My father died of heart complications in July. Theron said, voice steady. My mother refused to accept it. She's convinced he was poisoned. She's harassed Dr. Whitfield, our family physician, for 20 years. She's hired investigators. She refuses psychiatric help. Has she made specific accusations? Aldridge asked. She believes I killed my father for inheritance. She's told family, friends, estate attorneys, anyone who'll listen. It's been devastating for everyone who loved my father. I sat frozen in my chair, nails digging into my palms. Clifford's hand pressed my arm. Stay still, stay quiet, don't give them ammunition. Has your mother's behavior affected estate management? Aldridge continued. She's withdrawn funds for investigations that go nowhere. She's contested my father's updated will on baseless grounds. She's created an adversarial environment when we should be grieving together. I watched Theron on the witness stand, the boy who used to cry when stepping on ants, who made Warren read him 3 bedtime stories every night, who called me every Sunday from college just to talk, and realized Warren died not knowing his son had already become a stranger wearing his father's face. Thank you, Mr. Prescott. Aldridge returned to his table. Your Honor, we have documentation of all withdrawals and correspondence demonstrating Mrs. Prescott's deteriorating mental state. Judge Brennan turned to our table. Mr. Davenport, your response. Clifford stood carrying a single folder. Your Honor, I'm Clifford Davenport, estate manager for Warren Prescott for 32 years. Warren's original 2022 will named Phyllis Prescott sole beneficiary of his $60 million estate. The petitioner stands to gain substantially if his mother is deemed incompetent and removed from inheritance. We have significant concerns about financial motive behind this petition. Theron's lawyer shot up. Your Honor, that's inflammatory speculation. It's relevant to credibility, Clifford interrupted. Mrs. Prescott has hired investigators because she has legitimate questions about her husband's death. Asking questions isn't insanity, it's due diligence. Judge Brennan studied the document's expression unreadable. The courtroom waited in silence, breathing, shuffling papers, the ventilation system humming overhead. Finally, she spoke. I'm troubled by the conflicting interests here. However, given the substantial assets involved in disputed claims, I'm ordering a 14-day bilateral asset freeze. Neither party may transfer, sell, or liquidate estate assets pending independent psychiatric evaluation of Mrs. Prescott. Theron stood abruptly. Your Honor, that prevents legitimate business operations. Both parties are frozen equally. Mr. Prescott. Judge Brennan said firmly, Mrs. Prescott cannot dissipate assets and you cannot access them either. We reconvene September 6th for evaluation results. This protects everyone's interests until we have clarity. The gavel came down. 14 days. No access to estate funds for either of us. Pyrrhic victory. I wasn't declared incompetent, but I was trapped without resources. As the courtroom emptied, people pressed through the aisle, lawyers, observers, reporters. Someone brushed past me, and I felt something slip into my jacket pocket. By the time I turned, the crowd had moved on, faces blurring together. In the hallway, I pulled out a manila envelope. Clifford noticed. Who gave you that? I didn't see. Someone in the crowd. Inside, a surveillance photograph of Celeste at Logan Airport standing at a ticket counter with 2 large suitcases. Behind her, the Swiss Air logo was visible. Clipped to the photo was a printed booking confirmation. Zurich flight SR-156, departing August 26, 11:55 a.m., 3 days from now. A handwritten note on plain paper, she's running with the evidence. GF. The surveillance photo showed Celeste at the Swiss Air counter timestamp, August 22nd, 6:47 p.m. She'd booked the Zurich flight the same afternoon I discovered the wine cellar safe. Someone had told her within hours of my finding Warren's evidence. Garrett Finch. Clifford said, reading over my shoulder. He's still feeding you intelligence. Celeste is leaving, I said, in 72 hours with the lab evidence that proves Warren was poisoned. Clifford's face went pale. If she reaches Zurich with that evidence, we lose all leverage. She can blackmail Theron from Switzerland indefinitely, or sell the information, or destroy it. We'd have no way to prove the poisoning. The judge just froze every dollar I control, I said. How do we stop her with no resources? Clifford stared at the booking confirmation at the departure time ticking closer. We have 72 hours to answer that question. I scrolled through the funeral photos on my phone in Clifford's car looking for anything I'd missed and froze on image 43, Theron's wrist, as he carried the casket. Clifford navigated through downtown traffic, heading toward the safe apartment. The courthouse steps felt like hours ago, though it had been 20 minutes. The bilateral asset freeze meant we had 14 days of paralysis, but Celeste had 72 hours of freedom. "We need a witness list for when this goes to trial," Clifford said. "Who attended the funeral?" 200 people. Warren knew everyone in Boston energy circles. "Go through the photos. Anyone who seemed uncomfortable around Theron. Anyone who avoided him." I scrolled backward to the beginning. July 28, 2024. 4 weeks after Warren died. The funeral home chapel packed with dark suits and grief. Rebecca had taken most of the photo's crowd shots, Warren's casket covered in white roses, Ellis sitting beside me in the front pew, Theron greeting mourners at the door, image after image. Dr. Whitfield signing the condolence book, Celeste in black Chanel tissues pressed to dry eyes, Warren's business partners, our neighbors, estate attorneys. Image 43. Theron and 5 other pallbearers carrying the casket down the chapel aisle. The photographer Rebecca had caught the moment from the side focus, sharp on the polished mahogany. I pinched the screen, zooming in on Theron's hand gripping the casket handle. On his wrist, a gold Patek Philippe watch, Warren's watch. "Stop the car," I said. Clifford swerved to the curb on Storrow Drive. "What?" I thrust the phone at him. "That's Warren's Patek Philippe, on Theron's wrist, at the funeral." Clifford squinted at the screen. "The watch Warren was wearing when he died. He wore it every day. The police never mentioned it in the evidence inventory from the scene. I asked about his personal effects. They said wallet, wedding ring, reading glasses. No watch." Clifford zoomed closer. The distinctive gold case, the blue face, the moon phase complication visible even in the photo. "Theron took it before the police processed the scene," I said. "That's evidence tampering, obstruction of justice." The Patek Philippe had been Warren's 50th birthday gift to himself, bought the year his company hit $50 million in revenue. He'd worn it every day for 12 years through board meetings, and Ellis's birth, and the morning he died. Theron had stripped it from his father's cooling wrist like a grave robber, then worn it to the funeral like a trophy. "This is prosecutable," Clifford said. "Crime scene tampering theft from a deceased person. Combined with everything else, we need someone who can use this," I interrupted. "Someone with police connections." Clifford made a call. 20 minutes later, we had a name, Clayton Hartley. We met him the next morning at his Dorchester office, a converted storefront sandwiched between a laundromat and a coffee shop. Bars on the windows, faded lettering reading, "Hartley Investigations" on the glass door. Clayton Hartley, at age 67, looked like retirement hadn't softened him. Broad shoulders, gray crew cut the direct gaze of someone who'd spent 30 years interrogating liars. He'd investigated organized crime and loan shark operations for Boston police before opening his private firm 5 years ago. I showed him the funeral photo on my phone. He studied it for 30 seconds, then looked up. "Patek Philippe, your husband's. He was wearing it when he died. It's not in police evidence." Clayton pulled the photo up on his computer, enhanced it, zoomed in. "Clear serial number visible on the case back in this angle. We can prove ownership through purchase records. Your son wore this to the funeral. 4 days after his father died. Cocky." Clayton leaned back in his chair. "Or stupid. Probably both. I monitor suspicious deaths in Suffolk County habit from my organized crime days. Your husband's case hit my radar when it happened. 62-year-old man dead at home, family doctor rules heart attack, no autopsy ordered. That always smells wrong." "You saw Warren's case?" I asked. Clayton nodded. "Wealthy victim, gambling debt son, accommodating physician. Classic loan shark pressure pattern. I couldn't do anything without family request, but I kept the file. When you started asking questions, I noticed." Clifford pulled out Garrett's USB drive. "We have more than questions now." For the next 40 minutes, Clayton reviewed everything. The lab analysis, the debt records, Dr. Whitfield's payment, Celeste's requisition signature, Ellis's recordings, the insurance policy from the safe. He spread it across his desk like a prosecutor building a murder board. "This is prosecutable." he said finally. Multiple counts, conspiracy, fraud, evidence tampering. The watch gives us probable cause for exhumation. Toxicology on tissue samples will confirm the digoxin Garrett's lab detected. How long does exhumation take? I asked. I watched Clayton spread the evidence across his desk like a poker player revealing a winning hand-watch photo, lab analysis, debt records, insurance policy, but the ace Celeste held was already locked behind TSA security, where no subpoena could reach her until she boarded that Zurich flight. Filing to approval, minimum 5 business days, Clayton said. Then court scheduling, probably another week. We're looking at 2 weeks minimum before we can... His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, frowned, answered. Hartley. He listened, his expression darkening. When yesterday afternoon you're certain... He scribbled notes on a pad. Pre-cleared security, which terminal? More notes. Hilton between E and F, got it. Thanks, Danny. He ended the call and looked at us. That was my contact at Logan TSA. Celeste Monroe checked in yesterday afternoon for the Swiss Air flight to Zurich. She pre-cleared through security screening and she's staying in the Terminal Hilton until her Monday morning departure. The words took a moment to penetrate. She's already inside the secure zone. As of yesterday, 4 p.m., 48 hours until her flight boards. Can TSA pull her out? Clifford asked. Clayton pulled up a Logan terminal map on his computer, pointed to the Hilton location between international gates. She's past the checkpoint where police jurisdiction ends. International protocols apply. The only way to stop her is convincing TSA to revoke her pre-clearance, flag her as a flight risk or material witness. That requires evidence strong enough to trigger federal intervention. We have evidence, I said, gesturing at the desk. Not yet. We have allegations and private lab results. TSA needs official documentation. Criminal complaint filed, active investigation warrant issued. My exhumation order could do it, but that takes 5 business days minimum for approval. She boards in 48 hours. 48 hours. Celeste sat in a hotel room beyond our reach, counting down to a flight that would put her permanently out of jurisdiction, with evidence that could either convict Theron or give her permanent leverage over Warren's estate. 4 people sat around Clifford's dining table with photographs of Celeste's affair spread like playing cards, and Sheldon was explaining why offering her 15 fewer years in prison might save my grandson. Accessory after the fact versus conspiracy to commit murder, Sheldon said, tapping the legal pad. That's the difference between 5 years and 20. She'll take the deal if we frame it right. Clayton slid a manila folder across the table. These are from yesterday. Celeste with Bennett Lockwood at the Terminal E Hilton restaurant. 41-year-old real estate broker, been seeing her for 8 months according to my contact at his agency. 3 photos show them checking into the hotel together. I studied the surveillance images. Celeste laughing over wine. Celeste's hand on Bennett's arm. Celeste kissing him in the elevator. We tell her Theron's had her followed for weeks, Clayton continued. That he knows about Bennett, knows she's planning to run. She'll realize Theron plans to eliminate loose ends. And Ellis, I asked. I won't negotiate his custody. Non-negotiable, Sheldon confirmed. She testifies, accepts the accessory plea, relinquishes custody. Those are the terms. Clifford looked at me. Are you ready for this conversation? I thought about Warren's wine cellar safe, Ellis's tablet recordings, Garrett's guilt-stricken confession, the Patek Philippe on Theron's wrist. I've been ready since July. Before I tell you what Celeste said when I showed her those photographs at that cafe, are you still with me? Comment A if you think she'll confess, or B if you think she'll run and add one short reason why. Quick note, what follows includes recreated dialogue for narrative flow, but the lesson is what matters. If dramatized details aren't your preference, feel free to stop here. I met Celeste the next morning at Thinking Cup on Tremont Street. 9:30 a.m. Coffee smell thick in the air, espresso machines, hissing morning crowd thinning. She sat at a corner table wearing designer sunglasses indoors, her Louis Vuitton carry-on at her feet. You're supposed to be at Logan, I said, sliding into the chair across from her. Flight's in 36 hours. I wanted to see Boston one last time. I laid the surveillance photos on the table between us. Theron's had you followed for 3 weeks. He knows about Bennett. He knows you're planning to run." Her face went pale beneath the sunglasses. She removed them slowly. "Where did you get these?" "Theron's been documenting your affair. Insurance policy in case you try to leverage what you know about Warren's death. You think you're going to Zurich to escape your going, because he wants you gone before you become a liability he can't control." Celeste stared at the photos, her hand trembling slightly. "What do you want?" "FBI testimony. You tell them everything you know about Warren's poisoning. You accept an accessory plea, and Ellis comes to me." "I could just board that flight tomorrow. With federal warrants waiting at Zurich Customs, I have friends too, Celeste. Better ones than you think." She was quiet for 30 seconds, staring at the coffee cooling in her cup. Finally, she reached into her purse and pulled out her smartphone. "If I'm going down, I'm taking him with me." She scrolled through audio files, selected one dated August 12, 2024, pressed play. Theron's voice filled the space between us, clear and unmistakable. "I've been adjusting his evening pills for 6 weeks now. The digoxin levels will look exactly like heart failure. Dr. Whitfield won't question it. He's already on the payroll. By the time anyone thinks to ask, the cremation will be done." The audio was timestamped August 12th, 2024, 19 days after Warren died, 17 days before I was expelled from the mansion, meaning Theron was bragging about the murder to Celeste while pretending to grieve at the memorial service. I stopped the recording. "You've had this since August." "Insurance," Celeste said. "Same reason I ordered that lab test in April. I knew what Theron was doing. I documented everything." "And you let it happen." "I let a dying man die faster. Warren had heart disease. He had maybe 5 years left, and he was spending them making everyone around him miserable. Theron was going to inherit eventually. I just didn't stop him from accelerating the timeline." "You weaponized his death." "I survived his family." Celeste's voice was flat empty. "FBI testimony accessory plea Ellis goes to you, but I want witness protection consideration and time served credit. Sheldon will negotiate the details, but the recording goes to FBI Boston field office today." She slid the phone across the table. "It's already uploaded to 3 cloud services. You can't delete it. Neither can Theron." That night, alone in the safe apartment bedroom, I pulled out the old photo albums I'd rescued from storage before the expulsion. Theron at 2 years old, gap-toothed smile, holding a dandelion. Theron at 7, spelling bee trophy. Warren's arm around his shoulders. Theron at 17, Duke acceptance letter in hand, trying to smile while Warren talked about his cousin's Harvard admission. I found Theron's 2nd grade spelling test in a manila envelope still bearing Warren's red pen, correction changing happiness to happiness, with a note, "Careless equals lazy." 7-year-old Theron never spelled anything wrong again. After that, he just stopped trying anything he couldn't perfect. I remembered that evening. Theron bringing home a math test, 9 out of 10 correct. Warren looking at the one mistake and saying, "Why would I celebrate 9 when 10 was possible?" I remembered 17-year-old Theron saying, "Dad, I got into Duke with a scholarship." Warren barely looking up from his newspaper. "Duke's fine for state politicians. Your cousin got Harvard." I should have left him then, taken Theron somewhere he could breathe. Understanding why he broke doesn't mean forgiving murder, but I chose peace over protection, and Warren's cruelty became the water we swam in until Theron learned to drown others first. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Theron flashing on the screen. First call since he expelled me 5 weeks ago. First contact since I walked out of the mansion with a garbage bag of clothes. Celeste had delivered the audio confession to FBI Boston field office at 4 p.m. Today, federal agents had 9 hours to analyze it, verify authenticity, prepare arrest warrants. He was calling because he knew they were coming. The phone vibrated again. Second ring. I picked it up, stared at his name on the screen. 5 weeks of silence. Now 12 hours after Celeste delivered the recording, he calls. "What do you want from me?" "Theron, forgiveness, mercy, permission to pretend you're still my son." Third ring. "The boy I loved died with his father. This is just the cleanup. 4th ring, 3 seconds until voicemail. I answered on the 5th ring and my son's voice said, "Mom, I need to see you one last time before everything ends." His voice was steady but hollow. I sat on the bed edge phone pressed to my ear, 5 weeks of silence collapsing into this moment. "What do you want, Theron?" "One conversation, tomorrow morning, Boston Common by the Frog Pond." I know what Celeste did. "The FBI has the recording. I have maybe 36 hours before they come." Clifford appeared in the doorway mouthing questions. I held up one finger. "Why would I meet you?" I asked. "Because I'm still your son. Because you'll wonder what I would have said if you don't. 9 a.m. tomorrow, bench facing the pond." The line went dead. "What did he say?" Clifford demanded. "He wants to meet tomorrow, Boston Common. He knows about the FBI recording." "Absolutely not. He could be dangerous." "He's desperate, not dangerous. And he's right. I'll wonder forever if I don't go." "Then I'm coming with you." "No, this is between a mother and her son. One last time before he becomes an inmate." The August morning was clear sunlight filtering through elms around Boston Common. I found Theron on the bench overlooking Frog Pond at 9 a.m. exactly. He wore jeans and a t-shirt, not Warren's designer suits. Just Theron looking younger than 37, looking like the boy I'd raised. I sat beside him 2 feet of distance between us. Joggers passed. A mother pushed a stroller. A normal morning in a city where my son had committed murder. "Thank you for coming," Theron said. I almost didn't. He stared at the empty pond. Warren used to bring him skating here demanding perfection every lap. The gambling debt spiraled out of control. Theron said quietly. Poker games, offshore sites, then loan sharks when banks wouldn't extend credit. By March, I owed $3.2 million. They said they'd hurt Ellis if I didn't pay by June. I just needed Dad's assets liquidated faster. Access to the trust without his approval. So you poisoned him. I adjusted his medication. Small changes at first. I kept thinking it wouldn't work, that I'd stop before it got serious. But the digoxin built up, his heart weakened, and suddenly it was too late to reverse without admitting what I'd done. By July, he was dying whether I stopped or not. His voice cracked. I didn't think it would actually kill him. Not really. Not until the morning he collapsed. You blamed me, threw me out, and called me crazy. Because you were asking questions. If you kept digging, you'd find the truth. I had to discredit you before anyone listened. He turned to face me, eyes red, tears streaming. Can you forgive me, Mom? Not the lawyer, not the widow, my mother. Can you forgive me? I watched my son cry on the park bench where I used to push his stroller 35 years ago, and realized the cruelest part of motherhood is loving someone completely while watching them become unforgivable. I can forgive the boy who was afraid, I said. I can forgive the child Warren broke with impossible expectations. I cannot forgive the man who poisoned his father, watched him die over weeks, then threw his widow into the street while calling her insane. Theron wiped his eyes. That's fair. Where will you go when they arrest you? Federal detention center, then trial, then prison for 20 years if I'm lucky, life if I'm not. And Ellis? He's better off with you. He always was. Celeste and I were pretending to be parents. You actually know how to love him. We sat in silence for 5 minutes. Finally, Theron stood. Thank you for meeting me. I won't contact you again. He walked away across the common, hands in pockets, and I let him go. Later, I understood why he hadn't run that morning. The loan sharks had men watching him leaving the country without paying, first meant Ellis became their leverage instead. He was trapped by the same debt that had trapped him for 2 years. The Calabrese family's reach made fleeing impossible without the estate money he was still hoping I'd sign over. That afternoon at 3 p.m., Clifford arrived at the safe apartment with Ellis. Celeste had granted permission, cooperation helped her accessory plea. Ellis ran to me, threw his arms around my waist. Grandma, Mr. Clifford says I get to stay with you now. I hugged him tight, breathing in his 8-year-old energy. That's right, sweetheart. Is that okay? Mom says she's going away. She said you'd explain when I'm older, but I already know some things. He reached into his backpack. Grandpa Warren told me to be brave and remember everything, so I did. He produced his tablet, navigated to a hidden folder. I recorded conversations. When Dad and Miss Celeste talked about the medicine, there's 9 files. The third one is the clearest. My heart stopped. You recorded them. Grandpa said if anything happened to him, I should help you find the truth. He showed me how to use the voice recorder app and hide the files. Clifford's expression shifted to recognition. Warren planned this. He knew. Ellis tapped the third file. This one's from my birthday party, May 15th. They were talking in Dad's study after the cake. The recording timestamp showed May 15th, 2024, 7:47 p.m., the night of Ellis's spring birthday celebration, when Theron gave the toast about Warren being the strongest man I know, and he'd been discussing murder timeline between cake and presents. Ellis pressed play. Theron's voice filled the apartment crystal clear. Dad's heart medication, I've been changing the dosage since April. 3 months should be enough for the digoxin to build up. The coroner will call it natural cardiac arrest. His age, his medical history, Whitfield's paperwork, it's perfect. Celeste's voice. And if someone orders toxicology, they won't. Whitfield's signing the death certificate. No autopsy for natural causes. Ellis stopped the recording. I was in the playroom behind the couch. They didn't know I was there. I pulled him close, this brave boy who'd carried Warren's final mission for 3 months. You did exactly right. Grandpa would be so proud. Clifford immediately called his FBI contact speaker on. 4 minutes later, he hung up. They have everything they need, Clifford said. Celeste's confession, Ellis's recordings, Garrett's lab analysis, the financial records. They're moving tonight at 11 p.m. Theron will be in custody by midnight. I checked my watch. 6:47 p.m. My son had 4 hours and 13 minutes of freedom left. Then I realized I'd never told Clifford about this morning's meeting at Boston Common. I'd never mentioned Theron knew the FBI had the recording, knew arrest was imminent. The FBI thought they were executing a surprise operation. They didn't know Theron might already be planning to run. While Ellis showed me his recordings at 3 o'clock, Clifford and Clayton were 20 minutes away in Brookline, walking into Dr. Whitfield's clinic with evidence that would destroy a 30-year medical career. Clifford told me about it later that evening, sitting at the safe apartment dining table with cups of coffee neither of us touched. Clayton had gone home. Ellis was asleep in the bedroom. Just the two of us and the weight of what they'd accomplished. We walked in at 3:15, Clifford said. Receptionist tried to stop us, but Clayton showed his investigator credentials. Whitfield was between patients sitting in his office. What did you show him? I asked. Everything. The $85,000 wire transfer from Theron's offshore account dated July 26th, 2 days after Warren died. Garrett's original lab analysis showing lethal digoxin levels from the April sample. The funeral photo with Theron wearing Warren's watch that should have been logged in evidence. Clayton laid it all on his desk like a prosecutor's opening argument. How did he react? Went pale. Started saying, I don't know what you're talking about, but his hands were shaking. Clayton told him voluntary witness testimony gets immunity. Accessory to murder after the fact gets 20 years. You have 5 minutes to decide which future you want. Clifford took a sip of cold coffee, grimaced. Whitfield stared at his medical diploma on the wall for what felt like forever. Harvard Medical School, 1994, 3 decades of practice. Then he pulled out prescription pad paper and started writing. Signed a statement admitting Theron Prescott paid him $85,000 to sign the death certificate without ordering autopsy. Said he suggested cardiac arrest as cause of death to expedite the process. He confessed, I said barely believing it. Typed it up, formally signed every page, had his receptionist notarize it. Clayton walked out with a confession that puts the final nail in Theron's case. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow. Every piece of evidence was another confirmation that my son had murdered his father with surgical precision. Then I remembered the sealed envelope from the wine cellar safe. I'd brought it to the apartment but hadn't opened it yet, too focused on Ellis's recordings on the FBI timeline on everything moving too fast. Now I retrieved it from my bag, the envelope marked in Warren's handwriting, if I don't make it to 70. Warren had been 62 when he died, 8 years short of 70. I opened it carefully. Inside, a small brass key stamped with numbers, 2247, and a 3-page handwritten letter on Warren's personal stationery. Clifford moved closer as I unfolded the pages dated July 14, 2024, 10 days before Warren died. Phyllis. I read aloud. If you're reading this, I didn't make it to 70. By now, you know what Theron did. I'm sorry I couldn't stop it. I tried, but the digoxin was already in my system by the time I understood his plan. My voice caught. Clifford put his hand on my shoulder. The key opens safety deposit box 2247 at Boston Vault on Newberry Street. Inside, you'll find my original 2022, while naming you sole beneficiary complete documentation of Theron's embezzlement and gambling debts, and copies of all evidence I gathered. I paused my eyes, catching the next paragraph. I sent a duplicate evidence package to FBI Boston Field Office in February 2024, 6 months ago. They should have opened an investigation by now. If they haven't contacted you, something went wrong. Clifford later told me why the FBI never acted on Warren's February evidence package. Warren had mailed it to a field agent who retired unexpectedly in March, and the sealed package sat in a reassignment pile for months. Not corruption, just bureaucracy, swallowing urgency. By the time a new agent opened it in late July, Warren was already dead, and the case had been internally classified as natural causes, requiring a formal complaint to reopen. That's why nothing moved until Celeste delivered her audio confession in person. He knew 6 months before he died, Clifford said quietly. He prepared everything. I continued reading, but the next section blurred through sudden tears. I'm sorry for the harsh parenting that created Theron's desperation. I pushed too hard, demanded perfection, made him believe love was conditional on achievement. That's on me. I broke our son, and now you're paying the price. My throat closed. I forced myself to keep reading. I'm sorry I won't be there to protect you from what's coming. The expulsion, the accusations, the isolation. I wish I could spare you that pain. But I know you're stronger than anyone gives you credit for. You always have been. The final paragraph swam in my vision. I loved you from September 14th, 1988, until my last breath. Our first meeting, the restaurant with the broken piano, you wearing that blue dress. That was the night my life began. You were always enough, Phyllis. More than enough. I'm sorry I didn't say it more often. W. Warren dated the letter July 14, 2024, 10 days before he died, which meant he spent his final week knowing the digoxin would kill him, choosing to write love letters instead of crying for help, because he'd already set the trap that would catch his murderer. I broke down crying for the first time since the funeral, not the controlled tears of grief, but deep, racking sobs that felt like they'd tear me apart. Clifford pulled me into a hug, and I cried into his shoulder, for Warren, for Theron, for the family we'd been before everything shattered. Clifford's phone rang at 8:15 p.m. He answered, listened, nodded. Understood. We'll be ready. He hung up. FBI has the warrant. Team mobilizes at 10:30. Arrest planned for 11 p.m. at Theron's apartment. I need to see him first, I said, wiping my eyes. Phyllis. Before the FBI takes him, he needs to hear it from me. He needs to know I found everything. The safe, the evidence, Warren's letter, all of it. He's dangerous. He knows he's cornered. He's still my son, and I get the last word before he becomes inmate 47,000 whatever in federal prison. Clifford studied my face, seeing the steel beneath the tears. I'm coming with you. You'll stay in the car. This is between Theron and me. I pulled out my phone, typed a text to Theron. I know everything. Meet me at the mansion at 10 o'clock tonight. Come alone, or I tell FBI you're running. The response came in 30 seconds. I'll be there. I checked the time. 8:47 p.m. 73 minutes until confrontation. 73 minutes before I looked my son in the eyes and told him I knew he'd murdered his father before federal agents arrived to arrest him for patricide. Theron's second text arrived at 9:17 p.m., changing the location. Not mansion, too many cameras, meet me at Dad's Wachusett Lodge. I'll explain everything. And I was already turning my car west into darkness. Clifford called immediately. That's 50 miles away. The FBI is mobilizing for the mansion arrest. Text me the address, I said. I'm going. Phyllis, he's isolating you. This could be... Send me the address or I'll find it myself. He sent it. I drove. The Wachusett Reservoir stretched black and endless beside Route 140 August night, thick with cricket songs and humidity. Warren had bought the Lakeside Lodge in 2010, a wooden A-frame for weekend getaways that became another asset he rarely used. I'd been there twice, both times feeling like an intruder in Warren's private escape. Theron's car sat in the gravel driveway at 10:25 p.m., single light visible through the windows overlooking dark water. I texted Clifford my location before stepping out. His reply came instantly. FBI 20 minutes behind you. Do not sign anything. 20 minutes alone with the son who'd killed his father. I walked across the gravel, each step crunching too loud in the quiet night. The lodge door stood slightly ajar. I pushed it open. Theron sat at the dining table, disheveled, 3 days of stubble on his face, wearing the same jeans and t-shirt from Boston Common that morning. Papers spread across the table like a desperate game of solitaire. He looked up when I entered, and his eyes were red from crying, or lack of sleep, or both. You came, he said. You have 20 minutes before the FBI arrives. What's so important it couldn't wait for prison? He gestured at the papers. Estate transfer documents. Sign over your inheritance, shares the house. The investments, everything. I can liquidate it tonight. Pay the loan sharks disappear to Argentina. Ellis never sees his father arrested. You get your justice through my permanent exile. I vanish, you win, everyone moves on. I stared at the stack of documents, saw Warren's signature lines highlighted in yellow. You're asking me to fund your escape after you murdered Warren. I'm asking my mother to save her grandson from watching his father arrested for patricide on the evening news. I'm asking you to choose Ellis's well-being over revenge. This isn't revenge, this is justice. Justice means Ellis grows up visiting his father in federal prison kids, at school calling him murderer's son, therapy, for decades, to process the trauma. Exile means I disappear. He tells people his dad moved overseas for work, he gets a chance at normal. I looked at the estate transfer documents Theron's shaking hands held and realized these were the same papers Warren signed 30 years ago, making me co-owner of everything my son was literally asking me to undo his father's life's work to fund his murderer's escape. You don't get to run from this, I said quietly. You don't get to poison your father, blame me for his death, throw me out of my home, and then negotiate exile like you're accepting a job transfer. I know what I did. I know I can't fix it. But Ellis doesn't deserve to pay for my choices. Then you should have thought about Ellis before you adjusted Warren's medication for 3 months. Theron's face crumpled. Please, Mom, I'm begging you. Sign the papers, let me disappear. You'll never see me again. You can tell Ellis I died, tell him anything. Just don't make him watch this. He's 8 years old, Theron. He already knows. Loud pounding shattered the moment. FBI opened the door. This is a federal warrant. Theron's eyes went wide with animal panic. He lunged for the back door, but it exploded inward first. 3 agents in tactical gear flooded the room, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Hands where we can see them, down on the ground. Theron raised his hands, slowly sinking to his knees. Special Agent Carolyn Voss, at age 44, led the entry team from the FBI Boston field office, her expression all business as she holstered her weapon and pulled out handcuffs. Theron Prescott, you're under arrest for the first-degree murder of Warren Prescott conspiracy to commit murder, evidence tampering, financial fraud, and obstruction of justice. As the handcuffs clicked around Theron's wrists, I remembered the tiny hospital bracelet they put on his newborn wrist 38 years ago, both bands marking him as belonging, somewhere one to me, one to the justice system he tried to outrun. Agent Voss recited Miranda rights while Theron stared at me, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I know you are, I said. It doesn't change what you did. They pulled him to his feet, started leading him toward the door. That's when I heard it, a child's voice screaming from outside. Grandma, Grandma. Ellis burst through the doorway in Spider-Man pajamas, barefoot on the gravel, tears streaming down his face. He ran straight to me, threw his arms around my waist, buried his face in my chest. "Why are they taking Daddy?" he sobbed. "Where's he going?" The family notification had come through Clayton. He'd contacted Ellis's school emergency contact, my sister Rebecca, who'd driven to the mansion to collect Ellis and bring him here per FBI protocol. Rebecca appeared in the doorway holding Ellis's hand, her face drawn with exhaustion. She met my eyes, nodded once, then stepped back and let Ellis run to me. I knelt down, held Ellis tight while the agents loaded Theron into their vehicle. "Your daddy did something very wrong, sweetheart. He hurt Grandpa Warren. He has to answer for it now. But he said he was sorry." Ellis whispered, his small body shaking with sobs. Why can't sorry be enough? I had no answer an 8-year-old would understand. Above us, August stars witnessed what November courts would formalize: a family shattered by greed, a widow who chose justice over mercy, and a child who must grow up knowing his father valued money more than his grandfather's life. The FBI cars pulled away, red taillights disappearing down the dark road. I held my grandson under the starlit sky, his tears soaking my shirt, and tasted victory that turned to ashes in my mouth. The war was over. The cost was everything. The FBI car's taillights disappeared down the dark road, and Ellis stopped crying long enough to ask, "Grandma, where did they take Daddy?" I knelt beside him in the gravel driveway, August night, cool around us, crickets resuming their songs after the chaos. His small hands gripped my arms, his face streaked with tears, Spider-Man pajamas dirty from the gravel. "They took him to a place where judges will decide what happens next," I said carefully. "Daddy did something very wrong. He hurt Grandpa Warren. When people hurt others, they have to face consequences. Is Daddy going to jail like on TV?" "Yes, sweetheart, for a long time." His bottom lip trembled. "Did I make him do it? Was I bad?" I pulled him close, fierce and immediate. "No, baby, you're perfect. You're the best thing in this whole mess. Daddy made grown-up choices that had nothing to do with you. Adults make their own decisions and adults face their own consequences. None of this is your fault." He buried his face in my shoulder body, shaking with fresh sobs. I held him, one hand stroking his hair, the other rubbing circles on his back, the way I'd done when he was a toddler scared of thunderstorms. "Will he come back?" Ellis whispered. "Not for a very long time, maybe not ever. But you're going to be okay. We're going to be okay together." He pulled back, wiped his nose on his pajama sleeve. "Where will we live? Do you have a house? Grandma—" The question hit me. Ellis didn't know about the expulsion. To him, I'd always just been Grandma, who visited not the widow thrown out of her own home with a garbage bag of belongings. "I have an apartment right now," I said. "It's small, but it's cozy, and we'll find a real home together, just you and me. Maybe a house with a yard where you can play." "Can I stay with you, not with Mom?" "Yes, you can stay with me for as long as you want." His face brightened slightly, hope flickering through the grief. "Can we bring my toys?" "They're still at the mansion, and Grandpa's rock collection, I hid it in the attic storage so Dad wouldn't throw it away." Grandpa's rock collection. Warren, on their 10th anniversary, showing 7-year-old Theron his geology specimens, saying, "Every rock tells a story if you're patient enough to read it." A lesson their son never learned, too busy chasing shortcuts to stop and examine the patient accumulation of pressure that creates diamonds. "We'll get everything," I promised. "Your toys, Grandpa's rocks, all of it. We'll make a new home together." Rebecca stepped forward from the shadows where she'd been waiting beside her car. She placed her hand briefly on my shoulder, no words needed between sisters. Then she quietly walked away, giving Ellis and me space to breathe. Ellis pressed against my side. "Can we go home now, Grandma? I'm tired." "Home?" He meant my apartment, the safe space we'd build together. "Yes, baby, let's go home." Before moving toward the car, I looked up at the August sky. Stars blazed overhead, thousands of them visible this far from Boston's light pollution. The same stars Warren had loved, the same ones he'd pointed out to Ellis on camping trips, teaching him constellations. "Warren, wherever you are, I got him. Ellis is safe. That's what matters most." The August stars above us were the same ones that watched Warren die alone on July 24th. witnessed my expulsion, saw Theron's arrest tonight, celestial witnesses to a family's implosion and fragile resurrection, constant while everything mortal shattered below. But as I held Ellis's hand walking toward my car, I realized the hard truth: the estate remained frozen despite Theron's arrest. The mansion stood empty, full of memories and furniture and Warren's ghost. Legal battles waited. Court dates loomed. Theron's trial would drag through months of testimony. One final task remained before we could truly start over, reclaiming not just custody or assets, but the home itself, making it ours again, instead of a mausoleum for murdered dreams. Tonight, though, holding my grandson's hand under stars his grandfather loved it felt like enough. We'd survived the worst. Everything else was just paperwork and time. I buckled Ellis into the back seat. He was asleep before we left the gravel driveway, exhaustion finally claiming him. I drove slowly, carefully, precious cargo, more valuable than any estate or inheritance. My phone's silence during the confrontation showed 3 missed calls from Sheldon. I pulled over at a gas station, played the voicemail on speaker while Ellis slept. Sheldon's voice excited and urgent. "Phyllis, call me back immediately. Judge lifted the asset freeze. Theron's arrest was sufficient cause. You can access the estate accounts Monday morning. Also, the mansion. It's legally yours again. The expulsion order is void. I'm filing papers tomorrow to take full possession. We won. Call me when you can." I sat in the fluorescent gas station light engine idling, watching Ellis sleep in the rearview mirror. The war for justice was won. Theron arrested, evidence secured Ellis safe. But the war for home was just beginning. Monday morning, I'd walk into a bank and reclaim Warren's fortune. Sometime soon, I'd walk through mansion doors I'd been thrown out of 10 weeks ago. I'd stand in rooms where Warren died, where Theron plotted, where our family shattered. And somehow I'd have to make it a home again. For Ellis. For the future we'd build from ruins. I pulled back onto the dark highway heading toward Boston, toward whatever came next. The yellow key slid into locker 2247 at Boston Vault with a soft click, and I realized this was the last time Warren would speak to me. September 5th, 2 weeks after Theron's arrest. The Boston Vault building on Newbury Street looked like Victorian banking dreams. Marble columns, brass fixtures, the smell of old money and older secrets. Thomas Kellerman, at age 56, bank manager overseeing safety deposit access for 30 years, escorted Clifford and me to the private vault room. Locker was registered to Warren Prescott in February 2024. Kellerman said, checking his records, "You're listed as sole authorized accessor after his death, Mrs. Prescott. Take all the time you need." The locker opened with a whisper of hinges. Inside, thick manila folders labeled in Warren's precise handwriting. Original Will March 2022. Financial evidence, Theron. Insurance policy documents. FBI package duplicate. And one cream envelope unsealed marked simply, "For Phyllis read alone." Clifford pulled out the folders, examining contents with practiced efficiency. "Everything we need for the estate hearing is here. Original will complete evidence chain Warren's documentation of Theron's fraud. Judge Brennan will rule in your favor within minutes." "He left me a letter," I said, holding the envelope. Clifford looked up, saw my face, understood. "I'll give you privacy." He left, closing the vault room door behind him. Just me, marble silence, and Warren's final words. 4 handwritten pages on his personal stationery dated July 20th, 2024, 4 days before he died. "My darling Phyllis." It began, and my eyes blurred immediately. I'm writing this knowing I have less than a week left. The digoxin has reached levels that will cause cardiac arrest. Soon I can feel my heart struggling, my breathing harder each night. Dr. Matthews, my real doctor, not Whitfield, has confirmed what the blood work shows. Theron has succeeded. I'm dying. I could fight it. Hospitalization, chelation therapy, maybe survive another month or 2. But that gives Theron time to cover tracks, destroy evidence, perfect his story. Better to let him think he won, let the trap close completely. I'm sorry I didn't tell you Theron was dangerous. I wanted to every night when I saw you sleeping beside me, trusting that our son would never hurt us. But I know you, my love. You would have chosen mercy. You would have confronted him, given him a chance to stop, believed his promises to change. And he would have killed us both to silence the only witnesses to his plan. So I chose for us. I let him poison me while I documented everything. I chose your survival over my own because a world with you in it is better than any world with me. Warren dated the letter July 20th, 2024, 4 days before he died, which meant he spent his final weekend writing love letters knowing the digoxin would stop his heart, choosing to leave me words instead of desperate pleas because he trusted my strength more than he feared his death. I wiped my eyes, kept reading. You are the strongest person I've ever known. Don't let this break you. Live well better than I did with less ambition and more joy. Maybe return to teaching those literature classes you loved before I convinced you being my wife was a full-time career. Find peace in small things, books, coastal towns, Ellis's laughter. The estate is yours, all $60 million of it. Do something good with it. Fund scholarships help families trapped by gambling debt. Like Theron was build the life I should have given you instead of demanding you manage mine. There's a bookshop for sale in Rockport I saw last month. Cozy little place near the water owner retiring. I almost bought it for you as a surprise, but I won't be around to see you run it. Maybe you'll find it yourself someday. You always loved to use bookstores, the smell of old pages, the quiet. I loved you from September 14th, 1988, until my last breath on this earth. That first night, the restaurant with the broken piano, you wearing that blue dress, that was when my life began. Everything before was just practice for loving you. Don't mourn too long. Live. That's what I want most. Live the life I couldn't give you because I was too busy building empires instead of moments. Forever yours, W. I cried not from grief, but from being loved so completely by someone who chose my future over his present, who died so I could live free of his murderer. 2 weeks later, September 20th, I stood in Middlesex County Courthouse for the estate hearing. Judge Catherine Brennan presided, same judge who'd ordered the bilateral asset freeze. 90 minutes of testimony, evidence presentation, legal arguments. Clifford presented everything from Locker 2247. The original March 2022 will naming me sole beneficiary, FBI murder investigation documentation, financial evidence of Theron's fraud. Marcus Aldridge, Theron's attorney, made weak objections. Your Honor, the October 2024 will should stand despite accusations. Mr. Aldridge, Judge Brennan interrupted. The October 2024 will was executed under duress with the testator's widow forcibly expelled from her home. It is hereby declared null and void. My client's assets should remain in trust pending criminal trial outcome. Your client is charged with murdering the testator to access those assets. Motion denied. Mrs. Prescott is confirmed sole heir to the Warren Prescott estate, valued at approximately $60 million. Judge Brennan's gavel struck at exactly 3:47 p.m., declaring me sole heir. And I thought about Warren dying at 11:47 a.m. on July 24th. 4 hours difference, as if his estate could only officially become mine after the same amount of time he'd spent dying had passed in this courtroom. Clifford and I walked out into September afternoon sunshine. I stood on the courthouse steps, genuinely smiling for the first time since Warren died. You did it, Phyllis, Clifford said. Warren's legacy is secure, Ellis is protected, justice is served. I keep thinking about his letter, I said. He told me to find peace in small things. You will. You have time now. I turned to him, the question forming before I fully understood why. Clifford, do you know if there are any good used bookstores open in Rockport this time of year? Warren always said I'd love it there. He looked confused then. Understanding dawned. You're not asking about vacation. No. Warren wrote that I should return to teaching, find peace in small coastal towns, maybe buy a little bookshop someday. I'm not asking about visiting. I'm asking about starting over. The mansion held too many ghosts Warren study where he died, the wine cellar where I'd found his safe, Ellis's playroom where he'd recorded his father's murder confession. $60 million could buy anything, including freedom from grief. Rockport held possibility. I stood with Ellis before the Back Bay mansion one final time in October sunlight, and the house where Warren died no longer felt like home. It felt like a monument to everything we lost. The interior echoed empty. Furniture moved to storage or donated. Movers had taken the last boxes yesterday. Now just bare walls scuffed hardwood floors, dust motes dancing in window light. Ellis wandered through the hollow rooms, footsteps too loud. He'd spent the night at Rebecca's, so the final packing wouldn't upset him, but he'd insisted on saying goodbye to the house. "Grandma, does the new house have a beach?" he called from the library. "Can I look for rocks like Grandpa did? Better than a beach," I said, joining him in the empty room where Warren used to read. "We have a little cove behind the cottage. You can build your own collection." "Will there be other kids?" "The elementary school has 15 students in your grade. Small classes, nice teachers. You start November 1st. He nodded, processing. Then, "I'm glad we're leaving. This house makes me sad now." "Me too, sweetheart." He ran upstairs one last time. I heard the attic ladder creak. He was retrieving the hidden box of Warren's rocks he'd shown me weeks ago. Good. Warren's collection deserved to live somewhere that honored it. Ellis returned carrying a shoebox tied with string. "Got them. Can we go now?" "Yes, baby, let's go home." We locked the mansion doors behind us. The realtor would handle the sale. Some other family would fill these rooms with different memories, never knowing a murder happened in the study evidence hid in the wine cellar. A grandson recorded his father's confession in the playroom. At Clifford's brownstone office that afternoon, I signed the sale papers. The mansion sold for $4.5 million, half the value from 2 years ago. But I didn't care about maximizing profit. I cared about severing the connection. Sheldon spread legal documents across Clifford's desk. The Warren Prescott Renewable Energy Scholarship Fund, established at MIT with an initial endowment of $2 million. 10 full tuition scholarships annually in perpetuity for students pursuing clean energy research. Clifford looked up sharply. "You're giving away $2 million. Are you absolutely certain?" "Warren spent 30 years building renewable energy companies," I said, signing my name. "This scholarship will help students who share his vision long after we're all gone. It's what he would have wanted." Sheldon notarized each page. "The fund generates approximately $100,000 annually in investment returns, covering 10 students' tuition with administrative costs. That's his real monument, not a building or statue, but futures he'll never see." Signing the scholarship endowment papers felt like translating Warren's death from senseless violence into renewable future. His money would power students' dreams the way his digoxin-stopped heart once powered this family. Energy transformed, but never destroyed. Clifford studied me. "You've changed. 3 months ago, you were fighting just to survive. Now you're building legacies. 3 months ago, I was drowning. Warren's letter taught me how to swim again." I left Clifford's office with papers making me officially free of the mansion, officially committed to Warren's educational legacy, officially ready for Rockport. But one final thing remained. November 12th. I drove alone to Plymouth Federal Detention Center without telling anyone. Visiting required advance registration. I'd submitted the request 2 weeks ago, uncertain if I'd actually go. The detention center smelled like industrial cleaner and despair. Fluorescent lights, metal detectors, guards examining my driver's license. They led me to a visiting room divided by thick glass partitions, phone receivers on both sides. I sat, waited. Theron appeared escorted by a guard looking thinner, pale orange jumpsuit, hanging loose on his frame. 3 months in detention had aged him hair uncut stubble on his jaw shadows under his eyes. He picked up the phone receiver. I picked up mine. "Mom," he said, voice breaking on the word. "Hello, Theron? Is Ellis? Is he okay? Does he hate me?" "He's confused," I said carefully. "His therapist says that's normal for 8-year-olds processing a parent's incarceration. He drew a blue sailboat last week and won his school art competition." Theron's eyes reddened. He always loved boats. I was going to teach him to sail next summer. A bitter laugh. I was planning summers I'd already stolen. "He's growing taller, eating well, starting a new school in Rockport next week. We bought a cottage near the water. Rockport, Dad loved Rockport. I know. Silence stretched between us, the phone line crackling slightly. Why did you come? Theron asked finally. I don't know. Maybe because I needed to see you were still real, that you weren't just the monster in Ellis's nightmares or the defendant in court documents. You're still a person who exists. I murdered Dad. I blamed you. I threw you out of your home. Why would you... I'm not here for forgiveness, I interrupted. I can't forgive what you did to Warren, but I can acknowledge you're still my son. Through the glass partition, I saw Theron's hands, the same small hands that clutched my fingers on his first day of kindergarten, the same hands that adjusted Warren's medication dosages to kill him, and realized a mother's love is the cruelest sentence, surviving everything logic says should destroy it. I don't deserve even that, Theron whispered. No, you don't, but mothers don't love based on deserving. We just love and carry the weight of that forever. The visiting time warning buzzed 5 minutes remaining. I placed my hand flat against the glass partition. Theron stared at it, then slowly raised his own hand, mirroring the position on his side. Not forgiveness for murdering Warren, not forgetting what he destroyed. Simply, I am still your mother. You are still my son. That thread survives everything. Will you visit again? He asked. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not, but you'll know Ellis is okay. I'll send updates through your lawyer. Thank you. The guard called time. I hung up the phone receiver, walked toward the exit without looking back. Outside Plymouth Federal Detention November dusk painted the parking lot purple and gold. I realized I'd given Theron something he didn't earn and doesn't deserve the knowledge his mother still recognizes him as human, despite monstrous choices. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. Just the stubborn, irrational persistence of maternal love. The story didn't end with justice or revenge, but with the hardest thing going on living. December afternoon light slanted through Hollis Books and Tea's front windows as I shelved returning books, and Clifford walked in, carrying a white bakery box that smelled like snickerdoodles 3 months into this new life, and Fridays meant cookies. Grandma, Mr. Clifford's here. Ellis called from the children's corner where he'd been arranging his rock collection by color. The bookstore had opened in September, a cozy space on Harbor Lane, with mismatched chairs, floor-to-ceiling shelves, and a tea station that served locals and tourists equally. I'd named it after my maiden name, Hollis, reclaiming something from before I became a Prescott, before everything complicated. Clifford set the bakery box on the counter. How's business? Good. Sold 12 books yesterday, hosted a reading group this morning. Mrs. Henderson special ordered 3 mysteries. You're thriving here. Ellis approached, took a cookie. A lady asked me today if Grandma would write a memoir about Dad and Grandpa. I said no. Good answer, sweetheart, I said. Some stories aren't for selling. Clifford pulled papers from his briefcase. Speaking of legacy, buyer interested in Prescott Energy. Full acquisition, $8 million, combined with previous scholarships that would fund 80 more students annually. Warren's companies could educate hundreds. 8 million more carrying Warren's vision forward. Renewable energy students he'd never meet pursuing dreams he'd championed. Make it happen, I said. After Clifford left Ellis and I locked the bookstore early, I retrieved the bronze urn from my apartment upstairs, Warren's ashes, waiting 5 months for this moment. We walked to the rocky outcrop behind the building Atlantic Ocean stretching endless before us. December sunset, painted clouds, orange and purple cold wind carrying salt spray. Ready? I asked Ellis. He nodded, solemn. We'd discussed this ceremony for weeks, scattering Grandpa's ashes, where he loved the ocean, where we'd built our new life. I opened the urn. Ellis and I each took a handful of ash and bone, released it into the December wind. The ocean accepted Warren, back ashes dispersing across darkening waves. When the urn was empty, I stood quietly for a long moment. My phone buzzed. Clifford. I've been waiting for the right moment to give you this, he said when I answered. Warren left it with me in February, sealed in an envelope. He said to give it to you only after you'd scattered his ashes. He wanted you to have peace first, then the future. He was waiting at the parking area at the base of the rocks. He handed me a small envelope inside a brass key on a leather cord and a folded note in Warren's handwriting. My hands shook opening it. To my darling Phyllis, this key opens the house at 14 Harbor Lane, Rockport. I bought it 5 years ago, 2019, dreaming of the day we'd retire here together. I imagined us watching the ocean, running a bookshop like you always wanted growing old, where the only deadline was high tide. Now you're there without me, but you're there. The house is yours, always was. The deeds in Clifford's files under Hollis Trust. I love you across whatever distance death creates. Forever W. The brass key felt warm in my palm, or perhaps that was simply what love felt like when it reached you across 5 months of grief and silence. A final gift kept safe by a faithful friend, delivered at the only moment Warren knew I would truly be ready to receive it. What does it say, Grandma? I could barely speak. 14 Harbor Lane. Ellis, that's this building, our bookstore. Warren bought it 5 years ago. Before Grandpa died, 5 years before. Before Theron's gambling debt, before the poisoning, before any of it started falling apart. He bought this place planning our future together. Ellis processed this with 8-year-old wisdom. Grandpa prepared everything, didn't he? Like he always did. Yes, baby. I was crying now, laughing through tears. Your grandpa was so good. Warren had laid stones one by one, building the path I walked. Now, insurance policy stone, evidence file stone, love letter stone. And finally this, a house by the ocean, where widow and grandson watch waves continue their eternal work of wearing down even the hardest rock into something smooth enough to hold. He'd planned this exact life 5 years ago. I was living in his dream, the future he'd prepared, knowing we might never share it, but ensuring I'd have somewhere safe when grief finally loosened its grip. Darkness fell while we stood there, stars appearing one by one above the Atlantic. Ellis leaned against me, growing heavy with exhaustion. Grandma. Yes, sweetheart. Do you think we'll be okay forever? I thought about the question seriously. About Theron in prison, about Warren's ashes dispersing in ocean currents, about the scholarship fund that would educate students for generations, about this bookstore Warren bought before knowing he'd die. Nothing's okay forever, I said honestly. But we're okay right now, and tomorrow we'll try again. That's all anyone can do. They'd told me a 62-year-old widow had nothing left to fight for. They were wrong. I fought for justice for Ellis, for truth for Warren's legacy. I fought because giving up meant Theron won, meant Warren died. For nothing meant Ellis grew up believing love was weakness. No story ends neatly. Wounds don't heal completely. Families shattered by greed don't reassemble like nothing broke. But life persists, stubborn, irrational, beautiful in its refusal to surrender. Ellis's eyes drooped closed, his small body warm against my side. The bookstore lights glowed yellow behind us, welcoming. Grandma, his voice barely a whisper. What is it, baby? Will you teach me to write stories someday, like Grandpa wrote letters? I lifted him into my arms, 8 years old, growing heavier every day, won't let me carry him much longer. Yes, sweetheart, I'll teach you to write your own story, one that's all yours. He mumbled something about blue sailboats and rocks already half asleep. I carried my grandson across the rocky outcrop toward Hollis Books and Tea, past the front door with its brass bell, past mysteries shelved alphabetically, past the children's corner with Ellis's blue sailboat painting, winning first place at school, past the tea station Warren would have loved where locals gathered every morning trading gossip and book recommendations. Some stories end with revenge, some with justice, some with answers that explain everything. This one ends with a 62-year-old woman carrying her sleeping grandson into a house her murdered husband bought so she'd have somewhere safe to grieve and eventually impossibly heal. Warren was right about one thing from the very beginning. Life is so good when you know how to fight for it. And we walk toward the lights he prepared toward home, toward whatever comes next. The end. And to you listening to my story, remember this. I spent 35 years believing love meant keeping peace, staying silent, when my husband pushed our son too hard, choosing harmony over honesty. Don't make my mistake. When you see cruelty disguised as high standards, speak up. When someone you love is breaking under impossible expectations, intervene. I thought I was being a good wife by supporting his vision. I should have been a better mother by protecting my son from becoming what he became. What I learned through this nightmare is that justice and mercy can coexist. My grandma revenge wasn't about destroying my son, it was about protecting my grandson and honoring my husband's memory. Sometimes the strongest thing a grandmother can do is say no to those who hurt the people she loves, even when that person is her own child. I believe God put me through this trial so I could teach my grandson what real strength looks like, not perfection, not silence, but the courage to stand up for truth, even when it shatters your family. This grandma revenge story isn't about bitterness, it's about choosing healing over hatred. If my story resonated with you, please leave a comment below. Tell me what you would have done in my situation. Would you have fought for justice or chosen mercy? Share this grandma revenge journey with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more stories of family resilience and healing, please subscribe to Her Family Revenge. Your support means everything. Thank you for staying until the very end. Remember, while certain details in this story have been adapted for narrative purposes, the lessons about family forgiveness and fighting for what's right are very real. May you find strength in your own journey.